Black mom forced to move for white child. Moments later, her CEO husband fires everyone. The security guard's hand lands heavy on Patricia Williams's shoulder, his fingers pressing into the cashmere of her cream-colored cardigan as if she is something to be removed, something that does not belong in the gleaming white marble lobby of the Ashford Grand Hotel in downtown Atlanta. "Ma'am, I need you to step away from the fountain," he says, his voice carrying that particular tone. The one Patricia has learned to recognize over her 53 years of life. The one that says you are not supposed to be here. The one that transforms the word ma'am into something that feels like an accusation. Her 7-year-old granddaughter, Maya, clutches her hand tighter, and Patricia can feel the little girl's confusion radiating through her tiny fingers. Around them, the Saturday afternoon bustle of wealthy hotel guests continues. Women in designer dresses heading to the spa, businessmen speaking into phones, children in pressed clothes running toward the restaurant where a charity brunch awaits. But the security guard sees only Patricia and Maya, standing beside the ornate fountain where Maya had been tossing pennies and making wishes just moments before. "There must be some misunderstanding," Patricia begins, keeping her voice steady and calm the way her mother taught her to speak in these situations, the way generations of black women have learned to modulate their tones to avoid escalation to survive. "We're guests here. We're attending the Children's Literacy Foundation brunch in the—" "Ma'am." The guard interrupts her, and now his partner approaches, a younger man with cold blue eyes and a hand resting near his radio. "We've received complaints." "I need you to come with me." Complaints. The word hangs in the air like smoke from a fire she didn't start. Patricia looks around and sees what she should have noticed before, the blonde woman in the corner, arms crossed, pearls gleaming against her pink Chanel suit, watching with satisfied smugness. Beside her stands a boy of about 8, his face twisted with petulance, his designer sneakers spotless and white. He's pointing at Maya, and Patricia understands with sudden, sickening clarity what has happened. Maya had been at the fountain first. The boy had pushed her aside, demanded the spot where she stood. And when Maya, sweet, gentle Maya who has never learned that some spaces are not meant for girls who look like her, had simply returned to tossing her pennies, the mother had seen only one thing, a black child who would not yield. "Excuse me." Patricia's voice remains calm, but there is iron beneath it now, forged over decades of navigating spaces that never quite welcomed her. "My granddaughter and I have done nothing wrong. We are registered guests attending the literacy brunch. My daughter-in-law is speaking at the event. If you would simply check your guest list." "Ma'am, I don't need to check any list." The guard's voice rises slightly, drawing attention. People are watching now. A woman nearby pulls her child closer. An elderly white gentleman shakes his head with what might be sympathy or what might be disapproval. Patricia cannot tell any more. "We've had a complaint that your child was harassing another guest's son. I need you to step outside while we sort this out." "Grandma?" Maya's voice is small and frightened. "Did I do something bad?" The question breaks something in Patricia's chest, a piece of the armor she has built over a lifetime of moments exactly like this one. She kneels down, cupping her granddaughter's face in her hands, looking into those brown eyes that are identical to her own, to her son's, to her mother's before her. "No, baby," she says softly. "You didn't do anything bad at all." "Then why are the men angry?" Before Patricia can answer, before she can find the words to explain the inexplicable to a 7-year-old, the blonde woman approaches. Her heels click against marble like a countdown to something terrible. "Finally," the woman says, her voice dripping with a sweetness that Patricia recognizes as poison. "I've been waiting for someone to handle this situation. My son Bradley was simply trying to enjoy the fountain, which we pay quite handsomely to access, I might add, when this woman's child refused to move. Pushed him, actually. I think there might be something wrong with her." She lowers her voice conspiratorially, but loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "These people don't always understand proper behavior, do they? These people." The words land like a slap. Maya's grip tightens. Patricia rises slowly, her knees protesting. She's not as young as she once was, not as quick to fight, but her spine is straight and her gaze is level. "I understand proper behavior quite well," Patricia says, "perhaps better than someone who would lie about a 7-year-old child to justify her own prejudice." The woman's face reddens. "How dare you?" "Ma'am." The security guard steps between them, but his body is angled toward Patricia, his posture making clear who he considers the threat. "I need you to step outside now, or I'll have to call the police." The threat lands exactly as intended. Patricia knows what happens when police are called on black women in spaces like this. She knows the statistics, the stories, the names that have become hashtags. She looks at Maya at the fear dawning in those innocent eyes and makes a calculation that feels like swallowing glass. "Fine," she says quietly. "We'll step outside, but this is not over." "Oh, I think it is." The blonde woman smirks triumphantly. Some people just need to learn their place. Patricia is walking toward the door, Maya's hand in hers, when the lobby fills with the sound of approaching footsteps, many of them quick and purposeful. The elevator doors open, and out steps a group of 6 people in expensive suits, their faces tense with what looks like barely controlled urgency. "Mrs. Williams?" A young woman in a sharp navy blazer rushes forward, her heels clicking frantically. "Mrs. Williams, we've been looking everywhere for you. Mr. Williams is about to begin his address, and he specifically requested." She stops, taking in the scene, the security guards, Patricia's rigid posture, Maya's tearful face. "What's going on here?" The blonde woman laughs, a brittle sound. "Mr. Williams, I'm sorry, but this woman is clearly not related to anyone important enough to have a title like. Actually." A deep voice cuts through the lobby like thunder through a summer storm. "She's my mother." Every head in the lobby turns. Standing at the top of the grand staircase is Marcus Williams, 6 feet 2 inches of barely contained fury wrapped in a custom Tom Ford suit. His dark eyes sweep the scene below, cataloging every detail. The security guard's hands, his mother's dignified stance, his daughter's tears, the blonde woman's suddenly pale face. Behind him stand 12 of Atlanta's most influential business leaders, all frozen mid-conversation, all watching. "Daddy." Maya breaks free and runs toward the stairs, and Marcus descends quickly, sweeping her into his arms. He presses a kiss to her forehead, then looks over her shoulder at his mother, a silent question passing between them. Patricia gives an almost imperceptible nod. "I'm all right," but Marcus has seen enough. He has seen the tears on his daughter's face, the way his mother's hands are trembling slightly, the smug satisfaction still lingering in the blonde woman's expression before she recognized him. He has seen it all in the quiet, calculating part of his mind. The part that transformed a struggling tech startup into a billion-dollar enterprise is already working. "James," he says softly to the distinguished silver-haired man beside him. "Please take Maya to see her mother in the ballroom. Tell Denise I'll join her shortly." "Marcus, please." James hesitates, then nods. He gently takes Maya's hand and leads her away, the little girl looking back over her shoulder with worried eyes. Marcus watches until she disappears through the ballroom doors, then turns his full attention to the tableau before him. The lobby has gone absolutely silent. "Would someone," Marcus says, his voice carrying effortlessly across the marble expanse, "like to explain to me why my mother is being escorted from a hotel where I am currently hosting a $5 million charity event? A hotel, I should mention, that my company owns 47% of." The blonde woman's face has gone from pale to ashen. The security guards look at each other, something very close to panic in their eyes. The younger one actually takes a step backward. "Mr. Williams." The hotel manager materializes as if summoned by dark magic, his face slick with nervous sweat. "I'm sure this is all a terrible misunderstanding. If we could just step into my office." "No." Marcus descends the remaining stairs slowly, deliberately. Each step feels like a countdown. "I don't think we need to discuss this privately. This situation unfolded publicly, so let's resolve it publicly." He stops directly in front of the blonde woman, close enough that she has to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Tell me your name." She swallows hard. I don't see why that's your name." Victoria Ashworth Crane." Something flickers in Marcus's eyes. "Ashworth Crane, your husband is Theodore Crane, works in the procurement department at Horizon Industries." Victoria's face cycles through several emotions, surprise, confusion, then slowly dawning horror. "Yes, but I don't see what that has to do with Horizon Industries," Marcus continues, his voice conversational now, almost pleasant, "which has been negotiating a $120 million contract with Williams Technology Group for the past 6 months. A contract that, coincidentally, I was planning to sign at the board meeting on Monday." The silence in the lobby has taken on a new quality, the breathless anticipation of an audience watching a master at work. "Was planning," Marcus repeats softly. "Interesting choice of words, isn't it?" Victoria's hand flies to her pearls, clutching them like a lifeline. "Mr. Williams, please, I didn't know. I mean, I never would have your mother. The situation was." "The situation," Patricia's voice cuts in, quiet but clear, "was that your son pushed my granddaughter away from the fountain, and when she didn't immediately submit, you decided to have us removed from the hotel." "That's not," Victoria's voice cracks. "She's lying." "No." The single word comes from an unexpected source, the elderly white gentleman Patricia had noticed earlier. He steps forward, leaning on an elegant cane topped with a silver lion's head. "She's not lying. I saw the whole thing. The little blonde boy pushed the girl. She simply went back to what she was doing. This woman," he gestures at Victoria with his cane, "threw quite the tantrum about it." "I did not throw a madam." The old man's voice is dry as autumn leaves. "I've been attending society events for 73 years. I know a tantrum when I see one." A murmur ripples through the watching crowd. Marcus's eyes haven't left Victoria's face. "Here's what's going to happen," he says. "First, you're going to apologize to my mother, not the kind of apology that includes the word or the phrase, 'I'm sorry you felt,' a real apology. Then you're going to apologize to my daughter. She's 7 years old, Mrs. Crane, 7. And thanks to you, she just learned a lesson about this world that I'd hoped to spare her a little while longer." Victoria opens her mouth, closes it. Her eyes dart around the lobby, looking for allies, finding none. "And after that," Marcus continues, "we're going to have a conversation about what happens next, because this isn't just about a fountain or a misunderstanding. This is about a pattern of assumptions, of cruelty, of power wielded against people you thought couldn't fight back." He pauses. "You thought wrong." But to understand how we arrived at this moment, to understand the full weight of what unfolds next, we need to go back. Back 48 hours, to a phone call that started everything, to a woman named Patricia Williams and the lifetime of strength and struggle that shaped her into the woman standing unbowed in this marble lobby. If you're finding yourself drawn into this story, wondering what happens next and how it all began, take a moment to hit that subscribe button below. Becoming part of our community means you'll never miss moments like these, stories that remind us of the power of dignity, justice, and the unexpected ways life can turn around. And while you're at it, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from today. Are you in Atlanta like Patricia and Marcus? Somewhere across the country? Across the world? We love hearing from our viewers and building this community together. 48 hours earlier, Patricia Williams stands in the kitchen of her modest home in Stone Mountain, Georgia, the same house she's lived in for 32 years, ever since she and her late husband Raymond purchased it with money saved from his salary as a postal worker and hers as an elementary school teacher. The morning light filters through yellow curtains she sewed herself in 1994, casting warm patterns on the worn linoleum floor that she keeps meaning to replace but never quite gets around to. The phone rings, the landline, not her cell, which means it's either a telemarketer or one of her children, since they're the only ones who remember the number. "Hello? Mama," Marcus's voice, tired but warm. "Did I wake you?" Patricia glances at the clock, 6:15 in the morning. "Baby, I've been up since 5. Your father trained me too well, couldn't sleep past dawn if I tried. What's wrong?" A slight pause, the pause that tells her something is wrong, that her son needs something he's almost embarrassed to ask for. "Denise is giving a speech at the Literacy Foundation brunch on Saturday. You know how much that foundation means to her." Patricia nods even though he can't see her. Denise grew up in Bankhead, one of Atlanta's roughest neighborhoods, raised by a grandmother who never learned to read beyond a 5th grade level. Education, specifically literacy, is Denise's calling, her passion, the cause she's poured millions of her husband's money into supporting. "I know she's been preparing for weeks. The thing is, Mama, I need someone to watch Maya during the brunch. My usual assistants are all wrapped up in the charity event preparations, and I've got back-to-back meetings all morning with the Horizon Industries people before the event. And I was thinking," he trails off. Patricia waits. "I was thinking maybe you could come into the city on Friday, stay at the house overnight, and then come with us to the brunch on Saturday. Maya would love to spend time with you. And Denise has been wanting to see you too. It's been months, Mama." "It's been 7 weeks," Patricia says automatically because she counts. "I was there for Maya's dance recital. Still too long." Marcus's voice softens. "I miss you." The words land in her chest like sunlight, warm and golden. Her successful son, the CEO, the man whose face appears in Forbes magazine and on CNBC, still needs his mother, still misses her presence. Raymond would have been so proud. "Of course I'll come," she says. "I'll pack a bag today." "Do you want me to take the bus or—" "Mama." Marcus's voice carries that familiar note of gentle exasperation. "I'm sending a car. Please, for once, let me send a car." Patricia considers protesting. She's taken care of herself her entire life, doesn't need fancy cars and drivers, but there's something in her son's voice that makes her relent. "Fine, but I'm making my own breakfast before I leave. I know how you young people eat. Greek yogurt and avocado toast. No substance." Marcus's laugh is surprised and genuine. "Mama, you know I eat more than Greek yogurt." "Mom." But she's smiling, and she can hear that he is too. After they hang up, Patricia moves through her morning routines with the methodical grace of decades of practice. She waters the African violets on the windowsill, plants that Raymond gave her on various Mother's Days over the years, each one now carrying the weight of precious memory. She straightens the photographs on the mantel. Their wedding day in 1972, both of them impossibly young. The boys' school pictures arranged in chronological order. Marcus's Harvard graduation, where Raymond cried for the first time she'd ever seen. Marcus and Denise's wedding, elegant and beautiful, her daughter-in-law looking like a queen in ivory lace. There's a picture of Raymond on his last good day, 3 years ago now, sitting on the back porch in his favorite chair, the sunset painting the sky behind him in shades of orange and gold. He died 2 weeks later, quietly in his sleep, his hand still reaching for hers across the gap between their twin beds. Patricia touches the frame gently. "Our boy's doing well," she says softly. "Maya's getting so big you'd hardly recognize her." The house doesn't answer, but she's not expecting it to. She talks to Raymond sometimes, in the privacy of her own home where no one can hear and think her foolish. 47 years of marriage doesn't just end because a heart stops beating. Love lingers, haunts the corners of rooms, echoes in the creak of floorboards that remember 2 sets of footsteps. She spends the morning packing, carefully selecting outfits appropriate for a charity brunch at a fancy hotel. She's been to enough of Marcus's events to know what's expected. Not too flashy, not too plain, the careful calibration of a black woman navigating predominantly white spaces. She chooses a cream cardigan she bought last spring, a modest floral dress, comfortable shoes she can chase a 7-year-old in if necessary. The car arrives at 3 o'clock. Not a limousine, thank goodness, Marcus knows her better than that, but a comfortable black SUV with tinted windows and a driver named James who turns out to be a fascinating conversationalist. He's 68 years old, worked for Marcus for 15 years, grew up in Selma, Alabama, and marched with his parents in 1965 when he was just a boy of 8. "I remember holding my mama's hand," he tells Patricia as they cruise down I-85 toward Atlanta. "She told me we were walking for the future, didn't understand what she meant at the time. Just knew my feet hurt and I was scared of the white men with the hoses, but I understood later. Understood when I watched Mr. Williams, Marcus, build his company from nothing. Understood when I saw his daughter playing in a world that's just a little bit different than the one I was born into." "Is it different enough?" Patricia finds herself asking. James is quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes I think yes, sometimes I think no, but I've lived long enough to know that change is like a river, Mrs. Williams. You don't always see it moving, but it carves canyons eventually." Patricia thinks about this as Atlanta's skyline rises into view, gleaming towers of glass and steel reaching toward a sky that her grandparents never imagined their descendants would have a stake in. Marcus's company occupies 3 floors of one of those towers. Her grandson, her only grandchild, attends a private school with children of senators and tech billionaires. Change is like a river, but rivers, she knows, can also flood, can destroy, can drown. The Williams estate sits in Buckhead, behind wrought iron gates and a security system that Patricia has never fully understood how to operate. It's beautiful and intimidating. This home her son has built, 12,000 square feet of restored antebellum architecture that Marcus purchased specifically because of its history, because it was once a plantation house where people who looked like them were held in bondage. He's had it photographed for Architectural Digest, hosted governors and celebrities, thrown parties that make the society pages. But more importantly, he's filled it with black art, black history, the black excellence that his fortune allows him to celebrate and preserve. "It's about reclaiming," Marcus explained to her once, "taking something that was meant to symbolize our oppression and transforming it into a symbol of how far we've come." Patricia understands the impulse, respects it even, but she's never been entirely comfortable in this house. It's too big, too quiet, too far removed from the modest realities of the life she's lived. Maya, however, makes everything worthwhile. "Grandma," the 7-year-old comes barreling down the curved staircase the moment Patricia walks through the door, braids flying, pink dress swirling. She launches herself into Patricia's arms with the total trust of a child who has never been dropped. Patricia catches her, ignoring the protest of her lower back, and holds on tight. "There's my baby girl. Let me look at you. Did you get taller since the last time I saw you? Daddy says I'm going to be tall like him." Maya grins, showing gaps where baby teeth have fallen. "Mama says I'm going to be beautiful like you. Your mama is a flatterer." But Patricia is smiling, warmth spreading through her chest. "Where is your mama anyway?" "In her office, practicing her speech. She says she has to practice so the words don't get stuck in her mouth." Maya demonstrates by making her mouth into an exaggerated O of speechless panic. "Like this? Well, we'd better not disturb her then. What do you say we go see about some dinner? Is Miss Rosa still here?" Miss Rosa, Rosa Martinez, has been the Williams family's housekeeper for a decade. She's a round, cheerful woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a slight accent that speaks of her native Puerto Rico. She greets Patricia like an old friend, which she essentially is, and soon the kitchen is filled with the smells of garlic and roasting chicken and the sound of Maya's non-stop chatter about school and friends and the cat she's desperately trying to convince her parents to get. Daddy says cats are too independent, Maya reports seriously. He says he already has to manage hundreds of independent people at work. He doesn't need one at home. Your daddy has a point. Patricia hides a smile. But Grandma, I could train the cat to be not independent. I could train it to follow me everywhere and love me best. Baby, that's called a dog. Maya considers this with the genuine gravity of a child weighing important matters. Dogs drool, though. That they do. Marcus arrives home just as dinner is being plated, still in his suit but with his tie loosened, looking exhausted in a way that makes Patricia's heart clench. She remembers when he was small, smaller than Maya, running around their cramped apartment in a Superman cape, dreaming of saving the world. He did save it in his way. Built a technology company that creates jobs, that funds scholarships, that proves every day that black excellence is not exceptional but expected. But the cost of that salvation is etched in the lines around his eyes, the silver threatening at his temples, the weight he carries on shoulders that should still be young. Mama. He crosses the kitchen to kiss her cheek. Thank you for coming. Where else would I be? I don't know. He sinks into a chair at the breakfast nook, ignoring the formal dining room because this has always been how they eat as a family, close and comfortable. Enjoying your retirement, traveling, living your life. Watching my granddaughter is living my life. Patricia sets a plate before him. Eat, you look thin. Marcus looks at the plate, Rosa's excellent chicken, roasted vegetables, rice cooked with bits of chorizo, and something in his face softens. You know, Mama, sometimes I miss this. Miss what? Eating. No, I mean, he struggles to articulate it. The simplicity, growing up we didn't have much, but meals were. They meant something, everyone together, everyone present. Now I eat most of my meals alone at my desk or with investors who are calculating my worth with every bite. Then change it. Patricia sits across from him. You're the CEO, you can do whatever you want. Can I? His laugh is tired. Some days I feel like the company owns me, not the other way around. Baby, Patricia reaches across the table to cover his hand with her own. Your father used to say the same thing about the post office. Felt like his roots owned him, every house he delivered to, every step he took. But he found moments of peace anyway, found time for you, for your brother, for me. If he could do it on a mailman's schedule, you can do it too. Marcus is quiet, turning his hand over to hold hers. I miss him. I know, me too. Patricia squeezes his fingers. But he's still here, you know, in you, in Maya, in the way you try to do right by everyone, even when it costs you. The moment stretches, soft and sacred, until Maya's footsteps thunder back into the kitchen, demanding to know if anyone wants to see the dance she learned at school today. The solemnity breaks into laughter, and dinner becomes what dinner should be, full of joy and connection and the simple, profound pleasure of family. Denise appears halfway through Maya's third performance, looking slightly frazzled but beautiful in a silk robe and messy bun. She's a striking woman, Denise Williams, skin the color of dark honey, eyes that flash with intelligence and warmth, a presence that commands attention without demanding it. Patricia! She moves to embrace her mother-in-law. I'm so sorry I wasn't down to greet you. This speech is going to be the death of me, I swear. It's going to be wonderful, Patricia assures her. You always are. She's been practicing for 2 weeks, Marcus says, pride evident in his voice despite his teasing. I think she's recited it in her sleep. Well, someone has to keep the Williams name in the papers for good reasons, Denise shoots back. Not just your stock prices and acquisition deals. The banter is warm and familiar. Patricia watches her son with his wife, sees the way they orbit each other, connected by invisible threads of affection and partnership. This is what she prayed for all those years ago in that small apartment. This is what she hoped her boys would find, not just success, but love. Not just wealth, but joy. Later, after Maya has been negotiated into bed, 3 stories, 2 glasses of water, and a solemn promise that yes, Grandma will still be here in the morning, Patricia finds herself alone on the back terrace, looking out at landscaped gardens illuminated by soft solar lights. The evening air is warm, carrying the scent of magnolias from somewhere nearby. Can't sleep. She turns to find Denise settling into the chair beside her, a glass of wine in hand. Old habits. Raymond and I used to sit on our porch every evening watching the stars. I suppose I'm still looking for them. Denise follows her gaze upward. Not many stars in Atlanta, too much light pollution. No, but I can imagine them there anyway. They sit in comfortable silence for a while, then Denise speaks again, her voice softer. Patricia, I need to tell you something about tomorrow, about the brunch. Patricia turns, catching something in her daughter-in-law's tone. What is it? Denise takes a long sip of wine. The Ashford Grand Hotel, it's not always been the most welcoming space for people who look like us. The charity has hosted there for years. They have a great relationship with the hotel management, big donations, the whole thing, but the clientele, the other guests. She trails off. I understand. I'm not trying to scare you, it's just I want you to be prepared. Maya is used to it, unfortunately. We've had to teach her how to navigate spaces like that, how to hold her head high even when people look at her like she doesn't belong. Denise's voice cracks slightly. She's 7. She shouldn't have to know these things at 7. Patricia reaches over to take Denise's hand. I was 12 the first time a white woman accused me of stealing in a department store. Had to turn out my pockets in front of everyone, show them I hadn't taken anything. My mother stood beside me, face like stone, not saying a word. When we got home, she cried for an hour, but she also taught me something that night. What? That their cruelty is not your shame, that when someone tries to make you small, you stand taller, that the best revenge against a world that doesn't want you to exist is to exist beautifully, boldly, unapologetically. Denise is quiet for a long moment, then she squeezes Patricia's hand. I'm glad you're coming tomorrow. Nowhere else I'd rather be. Saturday morning dawns bright and promising, the kind of Atlanta spring day that feels like hope itself, warm enough for sundresses, cool enough for cardigans, the air sweet with blooming azaleas. Patricia wakes early as always, moving quietly through the big house while everyone else sleeps, making herself tea in the elaborate kitchen that she still doesn't entirely understand how to operate. She finds Rosa already up, preparing breakfast. You're an early riser too, Patricia observes. Rosa smiles. In my family, we say the morning belongs to the women. The men, they sleep. The women, we plan, we prepare. We make sure the world is ready for them when they wake. Sounds about right. They work in companionable silence for a while, Rosa making pancakes in the shape of butterflies, Maya's current obsession. Patricia squeezing fresh orange juice because she refuses to let her granddaughter drink the store-bought kind when fresh oranges are sitting right there in the fruit bowl. Maya appears first, still in her pajamas, hair wild from sleep. She climbs into Patricia's lap at the breakfast nook as if this is the most natural thing in the world, which it is. Grandma, I had a dream about you. Did you know what happened in this dream? You were a superhero. You could fly and shoot lasers from your eyes, and you saved me from a dragon. Well, Patricia strokes her granddaughter's braids. I don't think I can fly or shoot lasers, but saving you from dragons that I can manage. Promise, promise. The morning unfolds in a cascade of activity. Marcus in and out taking calls, Denise practicing her speech one final time in front of a mirror, Rosa helping Maya into her fancy dress, lavender, with a tulle skirt that makes her feel like a princess. Patricia carefully applying her makeup and fixing her hair in the guest room that's bigger than her entire bedroom at home. By 11, they're ready to leave. Maya's practically vibrating with excitement. She loves fancy events, loves getting dressed up, loves watching her parents be important. Patricia feels a flutter of anxiety that she hides behind a serene smile. You look beautiful, Mama. Marcus appears at her elbow, resplendent in a navy suit that probably cost more than Patricia's car. Flatterer, you get that from your father. I get everything good from both of you. The drive to the Ashford Grand takes 20 minutes. James is at the wheel again, and Maya chatters the whole way about what kind of food there will be. Hopefully those little sandwiches without crusts. Those are my favorite. And whether she'll see any of her friends, probably not. They're all boring and don't care about reading. And whether Grandma thinks there will be a fountain. I hope so, Patricia says. I love fountains. Me too. If there's a fountain, can we throw pennies in it? Daddy gave me a whole bunch of pennies for wishes. We'll see. The Ashford Grand rises before them, all glass and white stone and old money elegance. Valets rush to open doors. Bellhops stand at attention. Inside, the lobby is everything Denise warned about, vast and gleaming and filled with people who look at Patricia with that particular assessment, that momentary cataloging that decides whether she belongs. Marcus is immediately swept away by a cluster of people who seem urgent and important. Denise is whisked toward the ballroom by event organizers, promising to find them as soon as the speech is over. And Patricia finds herself alone with Maya in the middle of the grand lobby, surrounded by strangers, trying to project a confidence she doesn't entirely feel. Grandma, look, Maya tugs at her hand. A fountain. Can we throw pennies? Please, please, please. Patricia looks across the lobby to where an ornate marble fountain burbles peacefully, water cascading over carved cherubs into a pool glittering with coins. It's public, clearly. Other children are nearby, some looking, some moving on. All right, just for a few minutes. Maya squeals with delight and takes off at a half-run, Patricia following more slowly. The little girl produces a handful of pennies from her tiny beaded purse, a gift from her father for just this purpose, and begins the serious work of making wishes, eyes screwed shut with concentration before each toss. Patricia watches, heart full. These moments, simple, joyful, uncomplicated, are what make life worth living. Not the money, not the status, not the trappings of success. Just a grandmother watching a granddaughter throw pennies in a fountain, wishes flying upward with each copper disc. She doesn't see the blonde boy approaching, doesn't notice his mother watching from the corner, doesn't register the gathering storm until it's already breaking. Move! The boy, Bradley, though Patricia doesn't know his name yet, plants himself directly in front of Maya, close enough that she has to step back. I want to stand there. Maya, sweet Maya, simply moves to the side and continues making wishes. She doesn't understand that moving isn't enough for some people, that existing is the offense. I said move. Bradley's voice rises. My mom said this is our spot. The fountain is big enough for both of us, Maya says reasonably, because she's been raised to share, to be fair, to believe in a world where such things matter. But Bradley is not interested in sharing. He shoves Maya, not hard enough to knock her down, but hard enough to make her stumble, hard enough to make her look up with hurt and confusion in those beautiful brown eyes. Patricia is moving before she consciously decides to, that protective instinct overriding decades of carefully learned caution. Excuse me. She's calm, so calm, the calm before a tornado. Did you just push my granddaughter? Bradley's face cycles through expressions, surprise that he's being challenged, indignation, then the mask of false innocence that certain children learn to wear. She was in my spot. There are no spots at a public fountain. Now I think you should apologize to her. I don't have to apologize to her. Bradley? The voice comes from behind Patricia, high, shrill, imperious. The blonde woman sweeps into view like a storm front, her pink Chanel suit a declaration of status, her pearls a battle standard. What's going on here? This lady is bothering me, Bradley whines, and the transformation is remarkable from bully to victim in an instant. I just wanted to see the fountain and she's yelling at me. I haven't raised my voice, Patricia says evenly. I simply asked your son to apologize for pushing my granddaughter. The woman, Victoria, though Patricia doesn't know that yet either, looks at Maya, then at Patricia, and something shifts in her face. A calculation, a decision. I don't know what you're talking about. Her voice drips honey over acid. Bradley would never push anyone. Perhaps you misunderstood. I saw what happened. I doubt that. Victoria's smile is sharp as a blade. What I see is someone who clearly doesn't belong here, trying to cause trouble. Maybe you should find somewhere else to be. The words land like blows, each one deliberate, aimed precisely at the place where all those years of slights and insults and quietly endured humiliations live inside Patricia's soul. She feels Maya pressing against her leg, feels the little girl's confusion and fear. We have every right to be here, Patricia says. We're guests at the literacy brunch. My daughter-in-law is. I don't care who you think you are, Victoria's voice drops. In my experience, people like you always have some story, some excuse for being places you don't belong. Now you've upset my son, and I think it's time you left. She turns to signal someone, and Patricia realizes with a sinking feeling what's about to happen. The security guards, the ejection. The careful public humiliation designed to make her feel small, to remind her of her place in a world that never wanted her to rise above it. And perhaps it would have ended there. Perhaps Patricia would have simply left, gathered Maya, walked away with the quiet dignity that has been her armor all her life. But then Bradley speaks again. Yeah. The boy's voice is triumphant, emboldened by his mother's cruelty. You don't belong here. This hotel is for people like us. Maya speaks for the first time. What do you mean, people like you? You know. Bradley's smile is his mother's in miniature, that same blade-sharp cruelty. White people, rich people, not, you know. Bradley. Even Victoria seems to realize this has gone too far, but it's too late. Maya looks up at Patricia, tears beginning to form in her eyes, and asks the question that Patricia has been dreading her whole life. The question that every black grandmother dreads, the moment when the world's cruelty breaks through the protective bubble of childhood innocence. Grandma, why doesn't he want us here? Is it because we're brown? Patricia kneels down, right there in the middle of the fancy hotel lobby, and takes her granddaughter's face in her hands. She looks into those eyes that are identical to her own, to Marcus's, to Raymond's, to generations of ancestors who survived horrors that this boy and his mother cannot begin to imagine. No, baby, she says softly. No, he's wrong. We belong here. We belong everywhere. Don't you ever let anyone tell you different. But Maya is crying now, tears streaming down her cheeks, and Patricia feels her own heart breaking, not for herself, never for herself, but for this little girl whose world has just gotten smaller and crueler and more complicated. Victoria has signaled the security guards. They're approaching now, and Patricia knows what's coming. She rises slowly, keeping Maya behind her, shielding her with her body the way she would shield her from anything, from everything. Ma'am, I need you to step away from the fountain. The guard's hand lands on her shoulder, and Patricia thinks, not again, not in front of Maya, not here, not now, not ever again, but she keeps her voice steady, her spine straight. There must be some misunderstanding. And so the story continues, looping back to where we began, to the moment when everything changes. The silence in the lobby is absolute. Marcus Williams stands on the marble staircase, having just identified Patricia as his mother, having just watched his daughter run to him with tears on her face. The business leaders behind him are frozen, their conversations abandoned. The security guards look as though they wish the floor would open up and swallow them. And Victoria Ashworth Crane, wife of Theodore Crane, who works in procurement at Horizon Industries, which has been negotiating a $120 million contract with Williams Technology Group, has gone so pale she looks almost translucent. "I believe," Marcus says, his voice carrying that deadly quiet that everyone who works for him knows to fear, "that I asked you to apologize to my mother." Victoria's mouth opens and closes. The sound she makes is not quite words. "Let me be clear about something." Marcus descends 2 more steps. "I'm not just asking as a concerned son. I'm not just asking as the man who is currently hosting one of the largest charity events this hotel has ever seen. I'm asking as someone who has spent his entire career building something to prove that people like us, people that you clearly believe don't belong here, can achieve anything, everything. And I'm asking as the man who holds the future of your husband's career in his hands." "Mr. Williams," the hotel manager rushes forward, wringing his hands. "Please, let's discuss this in my office. I'm sure we can." "No," Marcus doesn't even look at him. "Mrs. Crane is going to apologize right here, right now, to my mother who she insulted, and to my daughter who she traumatized, and then we're going to talk about consequences." Victoria seems to find her voice, though it comes out reedy and thin. I mean, I'm sure there's been some. Your mother was being aggressive, and I simply—" "Aggressive?" The elderly gentleman with the silver cane steps forward again. "Sir, I witnessed the entire incident. This woman," he gestures at Patricia with undisguised respect, "was perfectly calm and reasonable throughout. Her granddaughter was doing nothing wrong, just throwing pennies in the fountain like any child. This woman's son pushed the little girl, and then she came over here and began making accusations and demands." "That's a lie." Victoria's voice rises to a screech. "Bradley would never—" "Madam, your son also made some rather unfortunate statements about who belongs in this hotel, statements about race that I think most people here would find deeply troubling." The old man's voice is dry as parchment, his gaze unflinching. "I may be old, but my hearing is quite good." A murmur ripples through the gathering crowd. More people have emerged from the ballroom, drawn by the commotion. Patricia sees Denise at the edge of the crowd, her face tight with anger and concern, and shakes her head slightly. "Stay there, I'm all right." "Mr. Williams." Victoria's voice has taken on a pleading quality now. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea who I mean, if I had known." "If you had known." Marcus's voice could freeze fire. "That's interesting, isn't it? You're saying that if you had known my mother was connected to someone wealthy and powerful, you would have treated her differently. But because you assumed she was just some random black woman in what you consider your space, you felt entitled to have her removed like trash." "That's not what I—" "That's exactly what you meant." Marcus has reached the bottom of the stairs now. He stands directly in front of Victoria, and Patricia sees something in her son's face that she recognizes from his childhood, the righteous fury he would feel when someone was being treated unfairly, the same fire that drove him to start his company, to create opportunities, to prove that success is not the exclusive domain of any one group. "Let me tell you what's going to happen now." "Marcus." Patricia's voice cuts through the tension. "Wait." Marcus turns to her, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Mama, please." Patricia moves forward, and the crowd parts for her the way it didn't just minutes ago. She stands beside her son, reaching up to place a hand on his arm. "Before anything else happens, let me speak." Marcus hesitates, then nods slowly. Whatever he sees in his mother's face makes him step back, ceding the floor. Patricia turns to face Victoria. The woman flinches, clearly expecting more anger, more recrimination. But Patricia's voice, when she speaks, is quiet and measured. "Mrs. Crane, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to really think before you answer." She pauses, making sure she has Victoria's full attention. "Why?" Victoria blinks. "Why what? Why did you see me and my granddaughter and immediately assume we didn't belong here? Why did you look at a 7-year-old child throwing pennies in a fountain and see a threat? Why did you feel entitled to have us removed, to humiliate us, to make my granddaughter cry?" Victoria's voice falters. "I wasn't trying to. You weren't thinking." Patricia's voice is still gentle, but there's an edge to it now. "That's the thing about prejudice, Mrs. Crane. It doesn't require thinking. It's automatic. It's instinct. It's something that gets taught and reinforced until it becomes so natural you don't even notice yourself doing it." She takes a step closer, and Victoria actually takes a step back. "I'm 53 years old. I've been dealing with people like you my entire life. When I was 6 years old, I was told I couldn't use the same water fountain as the white children. When I was 12, I was accused of stealing in a department store just for walking through it. When I was 18, I was rejected from a college I was fully qualified for because they had enough students like me. When I was 30, I was passed over for promotions I'd earned because I didn't fit the culture. And now, at 53 years old, standing in a hotel lobby where my son is hosting a $5 million charity event, I'm being asked to leave because my granddaughter wanted to throw pennies in a fountain. Patricia's voice hasn't risen. She hasn't raised a hand, hasn't made a threatening gesture. She's simply speaking the truth, and somehow that's more devastating than any display of anger could be. Do you know what the worst part is, Mrs. Crane? It's not the humiliation. It's not the frustration. It's not even the injustice. The worst part is watching my granddaughter, this brilliant, beautiful, innocent child, learning for the first time that there are people in this world who will hate her for no reason other than the color of her skin. That's a lesson I prayed she wouldn't have to learn so young. But you taught it to her today in this lobby with your assumptions and your cruelty. Victoria is crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Patricia isn't sure if they're tears of shame or fear or simply self-pity, and she finds she doesn't particularly care. So here's what I want from you, Mrs. Crane. Not an apology, at least not yet. I want you to think about this moment. I want you to remember how it felt to be the one standing in judgment, to have your character examined, to be found wanting. And then I want you to decide what kind of person you want to be going forward. Because the way you treated us today, that's who you are right now. And your son is watching. He's learning from you. Is this really what you want to teach him? Victoria's gaze darts to Bradley, who stands frozen nearby, his earlier triumphant smirk completely gone, replaced by something that might be shame or might just be fear of consequences. Patricia turns away from Victoria and moves to Marcus's side. She takes his arm, feeling the tension thrumming through him like electricity. Now, she says quietly, let's talk about consequences. Marcus looks down at his mother, and something in his face softens even as the steel remains. Mama, I know what you were going to do, and I appreciate it, but I want to handle this differently. She looks up at him, holding his gaze. This isn't just about making a point or punishing someone. This is about teaching Maya that there are ways to fight back that don't require us to become like them. What do you mean? Patricia takes a deep breath. Mrs. Crane, please step forward. Victoria does so, trembling slightly, clearly unsure what's coming. You treated my granddaughter terribly today. You treated me terribly. And based on what I understand, your husband's job and your family's financial security now rest on my son's decision about a business contract. Victoria nods, not trusting herself to speak. My son is going to make whatever business decision is right for his company, Patricia continues. That's between him and his board and his partners. But here's what I want from you personally. I want you to volunteer. I want you to spend time at the very foundation this brunch is supporting, the Children's Literacy Foundation, which works with underserved communities to help children learn to read. I want you to meet those children, to read to them, to see them as the individual human beings they are. Victoria's mouth opens. You want me to? Volunteer? 50 hours, at least. And I want you to bring Bradley. I want him to see that the children he thinks don't belong in the same spaces as him are smart and creative and full of potential. I want him to learn empathy, since clearly no one has taught it to him yet. Victoria looks around, perhaps hoping someone will tell her this is unnecessary, that she can simply apologize and move on. No one speaks. Okay, I'll do it. And one more thing. Patricia's voice hardens slightly. You're going to apologize to my granddaughter, not to protect your husband's job, not because you're scared of what might happen if you don't, because you genuinely understand that you hurt an innocent child and you genuinely regret it. Victoria swallows hard. She looks at Maya, who still stands near Marcus, watching the proceedings with wide, uncertain eyes. Maya, Victoria's voice is unsteady. I'm so sorry. What I did, what I said, how I treated you and your grandmother, it was wrong, it was cruel, and you did nothing to deserve it. I hope that someday you can forgive me. Maya looks up at Patricia, seeking guidance. Patricia nods slightly. Okay, Maya says, her voice small but steady. But you should know my grandma is the best grandma in the whole world, and my dad is going to be the president someday. So you should be nicer to people you don't know because they might be amazing and you would miss out on knowing them. Despite everything, Patricia feels a smile tugging at her lips. That's her granddaughter, resilient, kind, already wise beyond her years. Mr. Williams. The hotel manager steps forward again, looking slightly less panicked but still deeply concerned. We cannot apologize enough for this incident. We will, of course, be reviewing our security protocols and ensuring that all our staff receive additional training on. We'll discuss that later. Marcus's voice is clipped. Right now, I have a charity event to attend. My wife is about to give a speech, and I've already missed too much of it. He looks at his mother, a question in his eyes. Patricia nods. Go, Maya and I will be fine. Marcus hesitates, then bends to kiss her cheek. We'll talk more tonight. Yes, we will. He takes Maya's hand and heads toward the ballroom, the crowd parting before him like the Red Sea before Moses. The business leaders fall into step behind him, still murmuring among themselves about what they've just witnessed. Patricia finds herself alone with Victoria, the security guards having melted away, the hotel manager having suddenly remembered urgent business elsewhere. The lobby is clearing now, the spectacle over, normalcy reasserting itself. Mrs. Williams. Victoria's voice is barely above a whisper. Patricia turns to look at her. I mean it, I'm sorry, not just because… She stops, takes a shaky breath. You were right about all of it. I didn't think, I just saw what I expected to see and I reacted, and I hurt your family and I'm ashamed of myself. Patricia studies her for a long moment. The woman before her is not the imperious adversary of 30 minutes ago. She's smaller somehow, diminished by her own actions, confronting perhaps for the first time the cost of the casual cruelty she's been raised to see as normal. Shame is a start, Patricia says finally, but what matters is what you do with it. Grandma, Maya has broken free from Marcus and come running back, her lavender dress swirling. Are you coming to watch Mama's speech? Patricia takes her granddaughter's hand, feeling those small fingers interlock with her own. Yes, baby. Let's go watch Mama be amazing. As they walk toward the ballroom, Patricia doesn't look back at Victoria, but she carries with her the hope, tentative, uncertain, but real, that maybe, just maybe, something changed today. Not just for Victoria, not just for Bradley, but for everyone who witnessed what happened in this lobby. The seeds of change are planted in strange places, Patricia thinks, and you never know which ones will grow. For those of you who are watching and wondering how this story continues to unfold, what happens with that business contract, how Maya processes what she experienced, and whether Victoria actually follows through on her promise, stay with us. This journey is far from over, and while you're here, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next. Every comment, every subscriber helps build this community of people who believe in justice, dignity, and the power of stories to change hearts. Now let's continue. The ballroom of the Ashford Grand is transformed. 500 guests sit at elegantly appointed tables, the cream and gold decor reflecting the warm light of crystal chandeliers. At the front of the room, a stage has been set up with the Children's Literacy Foundation logo projected behind the podium. Waiters move silently between tables, pouring wine, delivering plates of carefully prepared food. The hum of polite conversation fills the air, punctuated by the clink of glasses and the occasional burst of laughter. Patricia slips into a seat at a table near the front. Marcus had arranged it before everything happened in the lobby, with Maya settling beside her. The little girl is quieter than usual, and Patricia can see her processing what she experienced, trying to make sense of a world that suddenly feels less safe. Grandma, Maya's voice is barely above a whisper. Yes, baby. That lady was mean because of how we look, wasn't she? Patricia takes a moment before answering. This is one of those conversations that matters, one that will shape how Maya sees herself and the world for years to come. Yes, she says honestly. Some people make judgments about others based on how they look, the color of their skin, their clothes, all kinds of things. It's wrong and it's hurtful, but it happens. Why? The question every parent and grandparent dreads. Patricia has thought about the answer for decades and still isn't sure she has it right. I think sometimes people are scared of things that are different from what they know, and instead of trying to understand, they put up walls. They decide that different means bad or dangerous or less than. It's a kind of small thinking, Maya. The opposite of what happens when you read books and learn about the whole big, wonderful world out there. Maya considers this seriously. So reading books makes you less scared? Reading books, talking to people different from you, opening your heart instead of closing it, all those things help. Your mama spends her whole life helping kids learn to read because she knows that stories can change how people see each other. Is that why she started the foundation? That's part of it. Patricia looks toward the stage where Denise is conferring with someone from the foundation. Your mama grew up without a lot of things. Her grandmother, your great-great-grandmother, couldn't read very well. It made life hard for her in ways that are difficult to explain. When your mama started being successful, she decided to use her position to make sure other children had the opportunities she didn't always have. Maya absorbs this. So mama's making the world better. She's trying. We all are in our own ways. The lights dim slightly, and a distinguished older gentleman approaches the podium. Patricia recognizes him from Marcus's description, Harold Mercer, founder of the Children's Literacy Foundation, now in his early 80s but still sharp and passionate about his work. Good afternoon, everyone. His voice is strong, practiced from decades of speeches like this one. Thank you for joining us for our 23rd annual Spring Literacy Brunch. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge our tremendous sponsors this year, including Williams Technology Group, whose generous contribution of $2 million will allow us to expand our programs into 6 new underserved communities. The applause is warm and genuine. Patricia sees Marcus, seated at a table near the stage, accepting acknowledgement with characteristic modesty. And now, without further ado, I am deeply honored to introduce our keynote speaker. Denise Williams is someone who embodies everything this foundation stands for. She grew up in circumstances that might have defeated a lesser person, raised by her grandmother in one of Atlanta's most challenged neighborhoods, facing obstacles that most of us in this room can barely imagine. But instead of letting those obstacles define her, she transformed them into fuel for an extraordinary journey. Harold continues his introduction, but Patricia's attention drifts to Maya, who has perked up at the mention of her mother's name. "That's Mama," she whispers proudly. "Yes, it is. So please join me in welcoming Denise Williams." The applause swells as Denise rises and approaches the podium. She moves with grace and confidence, but Patricia can see the slight tremor in her hands, stage fright, never quite conquered despite all her public speaking. "Thank you, Harold." Denise's voice is warm but clear, carrying easily through the room. "And thank you to everyone here today. Your presence, your generosity, your commitment to literacy and education, it means more than I can express." She pauses, looking out at the sea of faces. "I want to start by telling you a story. It's not a comfortable story, and it's not the speech I had planned to give. But something happened this morning that I think needs to be shared." Patricia's heart clenches. Denise is going off script. "About an hour ago, my mother-in-law, one of the most remarkable women I've ever known, was nearly thrown out of this hotel. Not because she did anything wrong, not because she broke any rules, but because of assumptions made about who she is and where she belongs based solely on the color of her skin." A murmur runs through the crowd. Patricia sees heads turning, seeking her out. She keeps her gaze fixed on Denise. "My daughter was with her. Maya is 7 years old. And today, in this lobby, she learned a lesson that no child should have to learn, that some people will judge her not by her character, not by her actions, not by the content of her heart, but by something as superficial and arbitrary as melanin." Denise's voice hasn't wavered, but Patricia can see the emotion behind her controlled expression. "I wasn't going to talk about this. The incident was resolved. My husband is very good at resolving things, and I was going to give my planned speech about literacy statistics and program expansions and all the wonderful work this foundation does. But then I thought, what message does that send? What message does it send to my daughter if I stand up here and pretend that nothing happened? What message does it send to everyone in this room if we continue to sweep these moments under expensive rugs and pretend that wealth and status protect us from the ugliness that still exists in our society?" She takes a breath, steadying herself. "The truth is they don't. They never have. My mother-in-law, Patricia Williams, raised 2 sons on a teacher's salary. She sacrificed everything to give them opportunities she never had. One of those sons is now the CEO of one of Atlanta's most successful technology companies. And yet this morning, a woman in this very hotel looked at her and saw, what? A threat, an interloper, someone who needed to be removed so that the right people could enjoy the fountain." Denise's gaze sweeps the room. "I don't tell you this to make you uncomfortable, although if you're uncomfortable, that's probably a sign you needed to hear it. I tell you this because it connects directly to why we're all here today. Why literacy matters, why education matters, why the work of this foundation matters." She leans forward slightly, her voice taking on new intensity. "You see, the woman who tried to have my mother-in-law removed was operating on a story she'd been told her whole life. A story about who belongs where, about who deserves access to what spaces, about who is worthy of respect and who isn't. That story was taught to her through 1,000 different channels, through media representations, through family attitudes, through the subtle and not-so-subtle messages our society sends every day about the relative value of different kinds of people. Stories are powerful. That's what I learned growing up with a grandmother who couldn't read. She would tell me stories, oral traditions passed down through generations. And through those stories, I learned who I was, where I came from, what I was capable of. But she couldn't read me books. She couldn't access the millions of stories that exist in written form, stories from other cultures, other perspectives, other ways of seeing the world. Her world, through no fault of her own, remained smaller than it should have been." Denise pauses, letting the silence do its work. "When we teach a child to read, we're not just teaching a mechanical skill. We're giving them the key to countless stories, and stories shape how we see the world. A child who reads widely encounters people of all backgrounds, all circumstances, all colors and creeds. They learn empathy not through lectures but through living inside other perspectives, through caring about characters who look nothing like them. The woman in the lobby this morning, her name is Victoria, and before you judge her too harshly, know that she's going to be volunteering with this very foundation soon at my mother-in-law's request. That woman's story failed her. The narrative she absorbed growing up taught her to see difference as danger, to protect what's hers through exclusion rather than building something bigger through inclusion. We can't change the stories of the past, but we can change the stories of the future. Every child who learns to read through this Foundations programs is a child whose worldview will be shaped by the vast diversity of human experience. Every book placed in the hands of a young reader is a weapon against ignorance, against prejudice, against the small-minded thinking that keeps us divided when we should be united. Denise's voice rises now, finding its full power. Maya, my daughter, is going to grow up in a world that still sometimes judges her by her skin. I can't change that overnight, but I can make sure she has access to stories that show her she belongs everywhere, that tell her she is worthy and powerful and valuable. And I can work to make sure that every child has access to those same stories, so that maybe someday we live in a world where a grandmother and her granddaughter can throw pennies in a fountain without anyone thinking twice about whether they deserve to be there. She takes a step back from the podium. That's the world I'm fighting for. That's what your donations support. And that's why, despite what happened this morning, I'm still hopeful, because change is possible. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in the lives of the children this foundation serves. And I saw it today in this lobby when my mother-in-law, instead of responding with anger, though she would have been justified, chose to respond with grace and wisdom and offered her attacker a chance at redemption rather than destruction. Patricia, will you stand up, please? Patricia's eyes widen. She didn't expect this. But she rises slowly, feeling every eye in the room on her. This woman, Denise continues, her voice thick with emotion, is why I believe in the power of stories, because she lived a story of resilience and dignity and love that shaped my husband into the man he is today. She taught her sons that their worth wasn't determined by what others thought of them, but by who they chose to be. And today she taught her granddaughter the same lesson. Denise begins to clap, and the ballroom erupts in applause. It's thunderous, genuine, a rolling wave of appreciation that makes Patricia's eyes sting with tears she refuses to let fall. Now, Denise waits for the applause to die down. Let me tell you about the amazing work this foundation is doing and how together we're going to change the world, one reader at a time. The rest of the speech flows more conventionally. Statistics, program descriptions, future initiatives, fundraising goals, but the energy in the room has shifted fundamentally. People are leaning forward, engaged in a way they might not have been if Denise had simply delivered her prepared remarks. The incident in the lobby, transformed through her words, has become not a source of shame but a rallying cry. Patricia sits back down, Maya immediately climbing into her lap for comfort. Mama was talking about you, Grandma? Yes, she was. She said you're remarkable. Your mama is very generous with her compliments. No. Maya's voice is firm, certain in the way that only children can be. She was telling the truth. You are remarkable. You're the most remarkable person I know. Patricia holds her granddaughter close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the small, warm weight of her against her chest. Through the blur of unshed tears, she sees Marcus across the room, watching them. He presses his hand to his heart, and she mirrors the gesture. This, she thinks, this is what all of it has been for. Every slight endured, every barrier overcome, every moment of doubt conquered. It was all so that this little girl could sit in this ballroom, surrounded by people who see her value, knowing that she belongs. The applause when Denise finishes is louder than before. People rise to their feet, a standing ovation that seems to go on and on. Patricia watches her daughter-in-law descend from the stage and make her way toward their table, stopping every few feet to accept congratulations and shake hands. We're amazing, Patricia says when Denise finally reaches them. Denise's careful composure cracks slightly, tears spilling over. I'm sorry I blindsided you, I just couldn't pretend it didn't happen. Don't apologize, it was exactly right. They embrace, the two women who love Marcus holding onto each other while Maya squirms between them, demanding to be included in the hug. Okay. Denise laughs, releasing Patricia to scoop up her daughter. Group hug for all of us. What about Daddy? Daddy is schmoozing with donors, baby. It's part of his job. What's schmoozing? Talking to people and making them want to give money to important causes. Maya considers this. I could do that. I'm very good at talking. You certainly are. The brunch continues around them, plates cleared, dessert served, more speeches from foundation staff and grateful recipients of their programs. But Patricia finds herself drifting, processing all that has happened. She thinks about Victoria Crane, somewhere in the hotel, probably trying to figure out how to explain to her husband what she did. She thinks about the security guards who were just doing their jobs, following orders without questioning whose orders they were or what assumptions drove them. She thinks about the old gentleman with the silver cane, who spoke up when he didn't have to, who saw injustice and refused to be complicit in silence. Mostly, she thinks about Maya. This morning, Maya was innocent in a particular way, believing, despite the careful lessons her parents had tried to teach, that the world was fundamentally fair, that being good would always protect her, that the rules applied equally to everyone. That innocence is gone now. It won't come back, but something else has replaced it. Maya saw ugliness today, yes. But she also saw how her grandmother handled it, with dignity rather than rage, with wisdom rather than despair, with grace under pressure that transformed a humiliation into a teaching moment. She saw her mother stand before 500 people and tell the truth about what happened, refusing to pretend or hide or accommodate. She saw her father wield his power not for vengeance but for accountability. Maybe that's better than innocence, Patricia thinks. Maybe knowledge of the world's imperfections, combined with examples of how to navigate them with integrity, is more valuable than ignorance could ever be. She's still thinking about this an hour later when the brunch is ending and people are gathering their things to leave. Marcus appears at her elbow, looking tired but satisfied. "Mama, can we talk for a minute?" "Of course." They step away from the crowd, finding a quiet corner near the windows overlooking the hotel's garden. "I wanted to thank you," Marcus says, "for how you handled everything today. I didn't do anything special. Mama," his voice is gentle but firm. "You stood up to someone trying to humiliate you, protected your granddaughter, and then offered your attacker a chance at redemption instead of destruction. That's not nothing, that's who you've always been, who you raised me to be." Patricia looks at her son, really looks at him. He's 45 years old, gray starting at his temples, lines around his eyes that speak of too many late nights and too much stress. But behind all that, she can still see the boy who used to run around their apartment in a Superman cape, dreaming of saving the world. "Your father would be so proud of you," she says softly. "He'd be proud of both of us." Marcus's voice catches slightly. "I miss him, Mama. Days like today, when everything gets complicated and messy, I miss being able to call him for advice. What would you ask him? Whether I handled it right. The contract, the business stuff, the consequences I'm about to impose on Victoria's husband. Am I being just or am I being vindictive? It's not always easy to tell." Patricia considers this. "What are you planning to do?" "The contract negotiations are going to continue. Horizon Industries is the best vendor for what we need, and punishing the entire company for one woman's actions would hurt a lot of innocent people. But Theodore Crane isn't getting the promotion he was expecting. Not because of what his wife did, but because I've done some digging into his own behavior, and apparently the apple doesn't fall far from the tree." "What did you find?" "Complaints from colleagues. A pattern of exclusionary behavior, disparaging comments about minority vendors, that kind of thing. Nothing that would have come up in a normal background check, but once I knew to look," Marcus shrugs. "The man has been creating a hostile environment for years. His wife's behavior today just shined a light on something that was already there." "And you think that's just not vindictive?" Marcus hesitates. I think justice and vindication aren't always clearly separated. I'm not going to pretend I wouldn't feel some satisfaction seeing Theodore Crane face consequences for his behavior. But that doesn't make the consequences wrong. It just makes me human." Patricia nods slowly. "Your father used to say that the measure of a man isn't whether he gets angry, but what he does with that anger. You're not destroying the Cranes' lives. You're not taking away Theodore's job or his family's security. You're just adjusting the trajectory. Making sure that behavior has consequences without being excessive about it. The 50 hours of volunteering Victoria has to do, that was your idea. Denise and I were talking about it last night, and she thinks it's brilliant. A punishment that might actually change something rather than just causing pain." "I hope so." Patricia looks out the window at the garden where roses are beginning to bloom. "I've been angry my whole life, Marcus. Not constantly, not consumingly, but there's always been this low-level simmer underneath everything. Anger at a world that made things harder than they needed to be, at people who looked at me and saw less than I was. For years, I didn't know what to do with that anger. I thought my choices were to let it explode or to swallow it until it poisoned me from the inside. What changed? You boys, having children, watching you grow up, knowing that the choices I made would shape who you became. I couldn't model rage for you, but I couldn't model submission either, so I had to find another way, a way to acknowledge the injustice without being consumed by it, to fight back without becoming the thing I was fighting against. Is that what you were doing today with Victoria?" "I was trying. It's not perfect, and I'm not sure it'll work. She might go volunteer at the foundation and come out exactly the same as she went in. People don't always change, even when you give them every opportunity." But I believe in offering the chance because sometimes people surprise you, and those surprises are worth all the disappointments. Marcus is quiet for a long moment. Then he pulls his mother into a hug, holding her the way she used to hold him when he was small and scared and needed to know that everything would be okay. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby, more than you'll ever know. They stay like that for a while, two people who have been through more than most, holding on to each other in the soft afternoon light filtering through the windows. Outside, the roses bloom and the world keeps turning, indifferent to the dramas playing out in hotel lobbies and ballrooms and quiet corners. But the world can be changed. Patricia has seen it, has been part of it. And she believes, despite everything, that it will keep changing, slowly, painfully, 2 steps forward and 1 step back, until someday, maybe, a little girl can throw pennies in a fountain without anyone wondering if she belongs there. The evening settles over Atlanta like a comfortable quilt, the city lights beginning to twinkle as the Williams family returns home from the brunch. The day's events have left everyone exhausted in different ways. Maya's exhaustion is physical, the kind that comes from emotional overload and too much excitement, and she falls asleep in the car with her head on Patricia's shoulder. Marcus's exhaustion is the bone-deep weariness of a man who has been performing strength all day, holding up not just himself, but everyone around him. Denise's exhaustion is the empty feeling that follows the adrenaline rush of public speaking, of baring her soul to 500 strangers. Patricia's exhaustion is something else entirely. It sits in her chest like a stone, the accumulated weight of a lifetime of moments like this one, of always having to be strong, of never being allowed to simply fall apart. Mama! Denise's voice is soft as they pull into the garage. Why don't you let Marcus carry Maya upstairs? I'll make some tea and we can sit on the back porch for a while. The night's beautiful. Patricia nods, grateful for the offer. She needs to decompress, and she's not sure she's ready to be alone with her thoughts yet. The back porch of the Williams estate looks out over the gardens, now silver blue in the moonlight. Rosa has left before them, as she usually does on weekends, but there are blankets folded on the outdoor furniture, and the tea kettle is already filled and waiting. The small kindnesses of thoughtful people make the world bearable. Patricia settles into a cushioned chair, wrapping a soft cashmere throw around her shoulders. The spring air is cool but not cold, carrying the scent of jasmine from somewhere nearby. Denise brings out 2 cups of chamomile tea and settles into the chair beside her. They sit in comfortable silence for a while, letting the quiet heal what words cannot. Can I tell you something? Denise finally says. Of course. When Marcus first brought me home to meet you, I was terrified. Patricia turns to look at her daughter-in-law, surprised. You never seemed terrified. Oh, I was very good at hiding it. But inside, I was absolutely convinced you would take one look at me and decide I wasn't good enough for your son. A girl from Bankhead, raised by her grandmother, no family money, no connections, nothing to recommend her except good grades and big dreams. I remember thinking, Patricia says slowly, that you were one of the most poised young women I'd ever met. You walked into our little house like you belonged there, like you weren't judging the cheap furniture or the outdated appliances or any of it. I wasn't judging. Denise's voice is soft. I was recognizing. Your house reminded me of my grandmother's apartment, small but filled with love, every corner telling a story about people who worked hard for everything they had. I felt more at home there than I'd ever felt at any of the fancy events Marcus dragged me to when we were dating. He told me you almost broke up with him in the beginning, said he was too flashy for you. Denise laughs, a surprised sound. He told you that? He tells me everything, always has. It's true, those first few months I wasn't sure we were compatible. He was living this wealthy lifestyle, flying private, eating at restaurants where the appetizers cost more than my weekly grocery budget. And I was, struggling honestly, trying to finish my MBA while working part-time, drowning in student loans. Every time he spent money casually, I'd calculate how long it would take me to earn that much. What changed your mind? Denise is quiet for a moment, considering. You did. Me. The way he talked about you. The way his whole face would light up when he mentioned something you'd taught him, some piece of wisdom you'd shared. I realized that this man, who seemed to have everything, was shaped by a woman who came from nothing. That his success didn't make him forget where he came from. It made him more determined to honor it. That's when I knew he was different. That his money wasn't who he was, it was just something he had. Patricia feels tears prick her eyes for what seems like the 100th time today. I never knew any of that. I should have told you sooner, but there was never a perfect moment, and then years went by, and it seemed strange to bring up something from so long ago. Denise reaches over and takes Patricia's hand. I'm telling you now because I want you to understand something. What happened today, the way you handled Victoria, the way you responded when you could have justifiably lost your temper, That's why my husband is who he is. That's why our daughter is going to grow up knowing how to face adversity with grace. Your example shapes this family in ways you probably don't even realize. I don't feel like an example. Patricia's voice is barely a whisper. I feel like an old woman who's tired of fighting. You are tired, that's allowed, but being tired doesn't mean you've stopped being extraordinary. Denise squeezes her hand. I need to tell you something else, something I've never told anyone except Marcus. Patricia waits. My grandmother, my father's mother, the one who raised me, she wasn't my biological grandmother. My biological grandmother was white and wealthy and completely unwilling to acknowledge that her son had had a child with a black woman. Patricia's breath catches. I had no idea. Almost no one does. My father, Marcus's father-in-law, he never talked about it. Too painful. His mother basically disowned him when he married my mother, and when my mother died and my father, well, fell apart. His own mother refused to take me in, said she couldn't be associated with something like that. I was 3 years old, too young to understand, but old enough to know that someone who should have loved me had decided I wasn't worth loving. Oh, Denise. My mother's mother took me in. She raised me as her own, even though she was barely scraping by, even though her health was failing. She's the grandmother I remember, the grandmother who matters. But somewhere out there, I don't even know if she's still alive, is a woman who looks at me and sees something less than human. Denise's voice is steady, but Patricia can see the old wound beneath the words. Today, when Victoria looked at you and Maya, when she decided you didn't belong, I felt it all over again. That same feeling from when I was small, that knowledge that someone has looked at you and judged you unworthy based on nothing but the color of your skin. It never really goes away, does it? No, Patricia admits, it doesn't. But here's the thing. Denise turns to face Patricia fully. My grandmother, my real grandmother, the one who raised me, she used to say that the people who reject us don't define us. The people who love us do. She said that every time I felt small because of someone else's cruelty, I should remember all the people who made me feel big, who saw my worth and reflected it back to me. That's beautiful. It's survival. It's how people like us have always survived, by building communities of love strong enough to withstand the hatred of the world outside. Denise's eyes are bright in the moonlight. You're part of that community for me, Patricia, for Maya, for Marcus. You're one of the people who make us feel big. Today in that lobby you showed Maya how to be big in the face of someone trying to make her small. That's a gift. Don't underestimate it. Patricia is crying now, tears she's held back all day finally falling. Denise moves closer, wrapping an arm around her, and they sit together in the darkness, two women from different generations connected by love and history and the shared weight of being black in a world that too often doesn't want them. I think about Maya's future, Patricia says when she can speak again. I think about what world she'll inherit, whether things will be better by the time she's grown. They'll be different. I don't know if they'll be better, but they'll be different, and she'll have tools we didn't have. She'll have resources and connections and examples to follow. She'll have us. Until she doesn't, the fear slips out before Patricia can stop it. I'm 53 years old, Denise. I have high blood pressure and a heart that keeps the doctors watchful. I might not be here to see her grow up, to help her face whatever's coming. Then she'll have the memory of you, the stories we tell her, the lessons you've taught that live on in all of us. Denise's voice is fierce now. My grandmother died. I was devastated. I thought I couldn't go on without her. But then I realized she wasn't really gone. Everything she'd taught me, every piece of wisdom she'd shared, every moment of love she'd shown me, all of it was still alive inside me. I carry her with me everywhere. Maya will carry you the same way. That's what Raymond used to say. That love doesn't end when we do. Raymond was a wise man. He was God, he was. Patricia wipes her eyes with the edge of the cashmere throw. I miss him so much sometimes I can barely breathe. Tell me something about him, something you haven't told me before. Patricia thinks for a moment. The memories of Raymond are like a garden she tends carefully, some flowers visited daily, others saved for special occasions. Our first apartment, she says finally. This was before Marcus was born, before we had anything. It was a one-room place in a building that should have been condemned. The heat barely worked. The neighbors were loud, and there were roaches no matter how much I cleaned. I cried almost every night that first month, convinced I'd made a terrible mistake marrying a man who couldn't provide better for me. What changed? Raymond came home one day with this box of old Christmas lights, the big colored kind, not the little white ones they have now. He'd found them in the trash outside a white neighborhood and spent hours testing each bulb, replacing the ones that didn't work. He strung them all around our room, around the window and the bed frame and the kitchen counter. And then he turned off the regular lights and turned those on, and suddenly our sad little apartment looked like a fairy tale, like something magical. Patricia's voice softens with memory. He said, "This is our palace, Patty. I know it doesn't look like much, but it's ours, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know you're the queen of it." And I looked around at those ridiculous Christmas lights, and I saw what he saw, not what we had, but what we were building. Not the circumstances, but the love. I never cried about that apartment again. That's beautiful. That was Raymond. He couldn't always give me things, but he could always give me perspective. He could take the worst situations and help me see the possibility in them. That's why I tried so hard today with Victoria, because I could hear his voice in my head, saying that she was more than her worst moment, that everyone deserves a chance to grow. Do you think she will? Grow, I mean? I don't know, I hope so, but either way I had to offer the chance. Raymond would never have forgiven me otherwise. They sit in silence for a while longer, the stars invisible behind Atlanta's light pollution, but somehow present anyway, the way Raymond is present in every choice Patricia makes. You should get some sleep, Denise finally says. Tomorrow's going to be another long day. What's happening tomorrow? Marcus has a board meeting in the afternoon, and Denise hesitates. He didn't want to tell you until it was certain, but Victoria Crane has requested a meeting with you tomorrow morning. She wants to apologize properly, she says, without an audience. Patricia's eyebrows rise. That was fast. Marcus thinks she's mostly trying to save her husband's career, but I think there might be something genuine there too. The way she looked when you were speaking to her, it was like something was breaking inside her, or maybe breaking open. What do you think I should do? I think that's entirely up to you. No one would blame you if you said no. She doesn't deserve your time or your grace. But you've never been about giving people what they deserve. You've always been about giving them what they need. Patricia considers this. The old Patricia, the one who existed before Raymond's death, might have refused. Might have decided that she'd given enough, taught enough, forgiven enough for one lifetime. But the current Patricia, the one who has watched her granddaughter learn a hard lesson about the world, the one who stood in a hotel lobby and chose wisdom over rage, that Patricia sees something else. I'll meet with her. Are you sure? No, but I'm going to do it anyway. Some doors only open if you knock. Denise smiles, and in the moonlight she looks almost like the nervous young woman who walked into Patricia's modest home all those years ago, hoping to be accepted. You know, she says, I've been thinking about my speech today, about the power of stories. It was a wonderful speech. Thank you, but here's what I didn't say. The most important stories aren't the ones in books. They're the ones we live. Every choice we make is writing a story that other people will read, especially children, especially our own children. Maya's watching all of us, learning what it means to be a woman, a black person, a human being in a complicated world. The story we write for her to read matters more than any book on any shelf. And what story are we writing today? Denise looks up at the sky, at the stars that aren't visible but are somehow present anyway. A story about resilience, about grace under fire. About choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. A story about a grandmother who taught her granddaughter that dignity can't be taken, only surrendered. She pauses. A pretty good story, I think. I think so too. They sit together until the night grows cold enough to chase them inside. 2 generations of women who have learned the hard way that love is the only thing that truly survives, and that giving it freely is not weakness but the ultimate strength. Sunday morning arrives with the soft gray light of a cloudy day. Patricia wakes early, as always, and lies in the guest room bed for several minutes, staring at the ceiling and preparing herself for what's to come. The meeting with Victoria is set for 10 o'clock in the library of the Williams estate. Marcus suggested a neutral location, but Patricia wanted home territory, not to intimidate but to control. She's learned over the years that important conversations go better when you're comfortable in the space. She showers and dresses carefully, choosing a simple navy dress and the pearl earrings Raymond gave her for their 25th anniversary. She applies minimal makeup, arranges her silver-streaked hair in a dignified style. She looks in the mirror and sees a woman who has survived more than most, who has earned the lines on her face, who has nothing to prove to anyone. You can do this, old girl, she says to her reflection. You've done harder things. Maya intercepts her in the hallway, still in her pajamas, bouncing with 7-year-old energy. Grandma, Daddy says I have to stay in my room while the lady visits, the mean one from the hotel. Why do you have to talk to her? Patricia kneels down, her knees protest, but she ignores them and takes Maya's hands. Sometimes, when people do something wrong, they want a chance to say sorry, to try to make things right. Mrs. Crane wants to apologize to me, and I'm going to let her. It's part of being a grown-up. Maya's face scrunches up with confusion. But she was so mean, she made me cry. I know, baby, and I'm not going to pretend she didn't, but people can change if you give them a chance. Not everyone deserves that chance, but I think she does. And if she can become a better person because of what happened, then something good will have come from something bad. Like the butterfly, Patricia blinks. What butterfly? In my book about caterpillars, they have to go in the cocoon and everything turns to mush and it's probably really gross and scary, but then they come out as butterflies, something bad to something good. Patricia feels tears threatening again. This child, this impossibly wise child, keeps finding ways to break her heart open. Exactly like the butterfly, you're very smart, you know. Daddy says I get it from you. Your daddy is a flatterer. Now go have breakfast with your mama while I talk to Mrs. Crane. And tonight, you and I are going to read stories and eat ice cream and have the best grandma-granddaughter sleepover ever. Maya's face lights up. Promise, promise. The doorbell rings at exactly 10 o'clock. Victoria Crane, Patricia notes, is at least punctual. Marcus answers the door. He insisted on being present for the initial greeting, protective as always, and leads Victoria into the library. Patricia is already waiting, seated in a leather armchair that Raymond used to love, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books that Marcus and Denise have collected over the years. Victoria looks different than she did yesterday. Smaller somehow. She's wearing simple clothes, gray slacks, a white blouse, minimal jewelry. Her hair is pulled back in a plain ponytail rather than the elaborate style from the hotel. Without the armor of designer labels and pearls, she looks almost vulnerable. Mrs. Williams. Her voice is barely above a whisper. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Patricia gestures to the chair opposite her. Please sit down. Marcus hesitates at the door. Patricia catches his eye and nods slightly. She can handle this. He can go. He hesitates a moment longer, then steps out, leaving the two women alone. Silence stretches between them. Victoria fidgets in her chair, clearly waiting for Patricia to speak to set the terms of this conversation. But Patricia has learned the power of silence over the years, has learned that sometimes the best thing to do is let the other person find their own way. I didn't sleep last night. Victoria's voice cracks. I couldn't stop thinking about what happened, about the things I said, about your granddaughter's face when she breaks off, pressing a hand to her mouth. Patricia waits. I've been trying to understand why I did it, why I reacted that way, and the thing is, I don't have a good answer. I saw you and Maya at the fountain and something in me just activated, like a reflex, like my body knew what to do before my brain could catch up. What did your body know to do? Victoria's face contorts with something that might be shame. Protect, exclude, make sure that what's mine stays mine. Even though the fountain wasn't mine, even though you weren't threatening anything, my body didn't know the difference. It just knew that you were different, and different meant dangerous. Different, Patricia repeats slowly. I know how it sounds, I know it's not an excuse, but I'm trying to understand it so I can change it. You said yesterday that prejudice is taught. I've been trying to remember when it was taught to me. And what did you find? Victoria is quiet for a long moment. Everything, it was everywhere. My mother making sure I didn't play with certain children in the neighborhood. My father locking the car doors when we drove through certain parts of town. The casual comments, the assumptions, the jokes that weren't really jokes. I absorbed it all and I never questioned it because it was just how things were. That's how it works, Patricia says. The water you swim in becomes invisible. You don't notice it until someone pulls you out. Is that what yesterday was, being pulled out? I don't know, only you can answer that. Victoria leans forward, her eyes pleading. Tell me how to fix it. Tell me what to do. I'll volunteer the 50 hours. I'll bring Bradley. I'll do whatever you ask. Just tell me how to become someone who doesn't do what I did. Patricia considers her carefully. This woman, this enemy from yesterday, is asking for something that money can't buy, absolution. The easy response would be to give it to her, to smooth over the ugly moment with platitudes about forgiveness and moving forward. But easy responses rarely lead to real change. I can't tell you how to become a different person, Patricia says finally. That's not how it works. Change doesn't come from following instructions. It comes from doing the work. What work? The work of seeing yourself clearly. Understanding why you think the way you think, believe the way you believe. Questioning the stories you've been told about who belongs where and why. Sitting with the discomfort of realizing that you've been wrong, not just yesterday, but probably every day for years in ways small and large. Victoria is crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I'm not sure I know how to do that. No one does at first, but you start. You read books written by people who don't look like you. You listen to their stories, really listen without defending or explaining or justifying. You notice when your body reacts the way it did yesterday, that instinct to protect, to exclude, and you question it instead of acting on it. You teach your son that the lessons he's learning from you are wrong and you model something different. That sounds like everything, like changing everything about my life. It is everything. Real change always is. The silence that follows is heavy with unspoken things. Victoria's tears have slowed, but her face is still red, her eyes still wet. She looks exhausted in a way that goes beyond physical tiredness. Can I tell you something? Victoria asks. Something I've never told anyone, Patricia nods. My best friend growing up was a black girl named Keisha. We were inseparable from ages 6 to 9, did everything together, told each other everything. She was the first person I ever really loved outside my family. What happened? We moved. My parents found out that the neighborhood was changing, as they put it, and they decided to relocate somewhere more appropriate. I never saw Keisha again, never got to say goodbye. My parents told me I'd make new friends, better friends, and after a while I believed them. I forgot about her. Victoria's voice is distant now, lost in memory. But here's the thing, I didn't really forget, I just buried it. And sometimes, late at night, I'd think about her and wonder what happened to her and feel this ache in my chest that I couldn't explain. I think that ache is why I react the way I do. Like if I can keep certain people at a distance, I can protect myself from that loss again. That's not protection, Patricia says gently. That's fear. I know that now. Victoria looks up, her eyes meeting Patricia's for the first time. I tried to find her last night, Keisha. I spent hours on the internet searching for any trace of her. I found what I think is her Facebook profile. She lives in Chicago now, has 3 kids, works as a nurse. She looks happy. Have you reached out? Not yet. I wanted to, but I couldn't figure out what to say. Hi, I'm the white girl who abandoned you 35 years ago and has spent the years since perpetuating the same racist systems that separated us. Somehow that didn't seem like the right opener. Despite herself, Patricia feels a smile tugging at her lips. Maybe start simpler. Just say you've been thinking about her, that you'd love to reconnect if she's open to it. What if she's not? What if she hates me? Then you'll have to sit with that, accept the consequences of choices that were made on your behalf, but at least you'll have tried, at least you'll have done something instead of nothing. Victoria is quiet for a long moment, then she nods slowly as if coming to a decision. I'm going to do it. Reach out to her, I mean, and the volunteering and all of it, the work you talked about. I don't know if I can change, but I know I have to try. Yesterday, what I did to you and your granddaughter, that's not who I want to be. That's not who I want my son to become. Then don't be that person. Don't let him become that person. How do I know if it's working, if I'm really changing? Patricia thinks about this. It's a good question, and it deserves an honest answer. You won't at first. Change is slow, and you can't always see it from the inside, but other people will notice. The way you talk to strangers, the assumptions you make, the jokes you laugh at, all of those things will shift, and people around you will register it even when you don't. And eventually, you'll find yourself in a situation like yesterday's, and you'll react differently. That's when you'll know. That's a lot to hope for. Hope is what gets us through. It's gotten people who look like me through centuries of being told we don't belong anywhere. We hope, we work, we fight, and eventually, slowly, things change. You're part of that now, whether you meant to be or not. Victoria stands, smoothing her pants with trembling hands. I should go. I've taken too much of your time already. Patricia rises too. Her knees really do protest this time and walks Victoria to the library door. Mrs. Williams. Victoria turns at the threshold. Your granddaughter. Maya, she said I should be nicer to people because they might be amazing and I'd miss out on knowing them. I've been thinking about that. She's a smart girl. She is, and I'm sorry I made her cry. I'm sorry I made her learn that lesson about the world. I know I can't undo it, but I can try to be part of making sure the world she grows up in is a little less cruel than the one I grew up in. That's all any of us can do. They stand facing each other, these 2 women who were enemies just 24 hours ago, separated by history and prejudice and all the ugly things humans do to each other, but also connected somehow by this moment of possibility, this tiny seed of change that might grow into something or might wither and die, depending on choices yet to be made. Goodbye, Mrs. Williams. Goodbye, Victoria. Patricia watches her walk down the hallway, through the foyer, out the front door. Marcus is waiting there, having shown Victoria out, and he comes back with a questioning look. How did it go? I don't know yet. Ask me in a year. Mama, she's trying, Marcus. Whether she'll succeed, whether any of us succeed at becoming better than we are, that's always an open question, but she's trying. That's more than most people do. Marcus puts his arm around his mother's shoulders. You're amazing, you know that. I'm tired, that's what I know. Then rest, you've earned it. But rest doesn't come easily. Patricia spends the afternoon in the guest room, lying on the bed but not sleeping, thinking about all the conversations she's had in the past 2 days. About Victoria's childhood friend, Keisha, abandoned to the forces of segregation and fear. About Denise's grandmother, the white woman who refused to acknowledge her own grandchild. About Raymond, stringing Christmas lights in a decrepit apartment, making palaces out of poverty through sheer force of love. She thinks about Maya, asleep in her lavender dress in the back of the car, dreaming whatever dreams 7-year-olds dream. About what it means to raise children in a world that doesn't always want them, to teach them to be strong without making them hard, to give them hope without lying about the obstacles they'll face. And she thinks about herself, 53 years old, widow, grandmother, veteran of more battles than she can count. Still fighting, still hoping, still here. Around 4 o'clock, there's a soft knock on the door. Grandma, Maya's voice, small and uncertain. Are you awake? Yes, baby, come in. Maya opens the door and pads across the carpet in her sock feet, climbing onto the bed beside Patricia with the casual confidence of a child who has never questioned her welcome. Daddy said you needed to rest, but I missed you. Is that okay? That's more than okay. Patricia pulls her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling that small, warm body pressed against her own. I missed you too. They lie together in silence for a while, grandmother and granddaughter, the afternoon light filtering through the curtains. Grandma. Yes, baby. The lady came, the mean one. I saw her leave. Yes, she did. Was she mean again? Patricia considers how to answer. No, baby, she was trying to be better. She was sad about what she did, and she wanted to apologize. Forgive her. I'm working on it. Forgiveness isn't always something that happens all at once. Sometimes it takes time. Maya processes this with the seriousness of a child confronting a complex idea. Like growing a flower? Yes, exactly like that. You plant the seed and then you water it and give it sunlight and wait. And eventually, if everything goes right, it blooms. But you can't make it bloom faster by wanting it to. You just have to be patient. I'm not very good at patient. Neither am I, neither is anyone, really, but we try. Maya is quiet for a moment then. Grandma, can I tell you a secret? Of course. I don't want to forgive that lady. She was so mean and she made me feel bad and I don't want to give her a flower. I want to. Maya's face scrunches up, searching for words. I want her to feel as bad as I felt. Patricia's heart aches. This, too, is part of the legacy, not just the grace, but the rage beneath it. The perfectly reasonable human response to being hurt, wanting the person who hurt you to hurt too. That's normal, she says gently. It's okay to feel that way. But you said forgiveness is good. Forgiveness is good, but that doesn't mean you have to forgive right away or that your feelings about what happened don't matter. What she did to you was wrong and you're allowed to be angry about it. You're allowed to take as long as you need. What if I never forgive her? What if I stay mad forever? Patricia thinks about this carefully. Then you stay mad. Nobody can force you to forgive someone, but I'll tell you something my mama used to say. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It hurts you more than it hurts them. At some point, you have to let it go not for their sake, but for yours. That's confusing. I know, it doesn't make sense when you're 7. It barely makes sense when you're 53. Patricia strokes Maya's braids. But here's what I can tell you. You don't have to decide anything right now. You don't have to forgive her today or tomorrow or next week. You just have to keep being the wonderful person you already are, and eventually the anger will get smaller on its own. It'll never disappear completely, maybe, but it'll stop taking up so much space. Maya considers this. Like when I was scared of the dark and Mama put a nightlight in my room? Something like that. The dark doesn't go away, but the light helps you see that there's nothing to be afraid of. I like that. Maya snuggles closer. Grandma, will you be here forever? The question catches Patricia off guard. What do you mean, baby? Some of my friends at school, their grandmas died. Lily's grandma and Aiden's grandma and Justin's grandma. They were really sad. I don't want you to die. Patricia feels tears threatening again. They're never far away these days and blinks them back. No one lives forever, Maya. That's just how the world works, but I plan to be here for a long, long time. I want to see you grow up and become whoever you're going to become. Even if I become a dragon trainer. Especially if you become a dragon trainer. Although that seems like a dangerous career choice, so maybe a dragon trainer who wears protective gear. Maya giggles, the heavy moment passing as quickly as it came. Grandma, there aren't real dragons. That's what they want you to think. Who's they? The dragons, obviously. They're very good at hiding. Maya's giggles turn into full laughter, and Patricia joins her, the two of them laughing together on the bed while the afternoon sun moves slowly across the ceiling. This, Patricia thinks, this is what it's all for. Not the battles won or lost, not the speeches given or received, not even the lessons taught. Just this, laughter with someone you love. The simple, profound joy of connection. When Maya finally falls asleep, worn out by too many emotions in too few days, Patricia lies beside her and watches her breathe, studying the perfect curves of her cheek, the flutter of her eyelashes, the soft curl of her fingers against the blanket. I'm going to be here as long as I can, she whispers. I promise, and when I'm not here anymore, I'll still be with you. In the stories people tell, in the lessons you've learned, in the love that never goes away. Maya doesn't stir, but somehow Patricia feels that she's heard. The next morning brings a surprise. Patricia is in the kitchen arguing with the coffee machine that she still hasn't fully figured out how to operate when Marcus comes in with an envelope in his hand and a peculiar expression on his face. Mama, this came for you, hand-delivered this morning. Patricia takes the envelope, noting the expensive stationery, the elegant handwriting. She opens it carefully and reads. Dear Mrs. Williams, I wasn't sure if writing this letter was appropriate, given everything that happened, but I felt compelled to try anyway. My name is Richard Harrington. I was the gentleman with the cane in the hotel lobby on Saturday. I witnessed the incident with Mrs. Crane and found myself deeply moved by how you handled it. I'm 83 years old. I've lived through more history than I sometimes know what to do with. I marched for civil rights in the 60s, watched presidents come and go, seen the world change in ways I couldn't have imagined when I was young. And I've also seen it stay the same in ways that break my heart. What you did on Saturday, choosing grace over rage, offering redemption instead of destruction, reminded me why hope matters. In a world that often seems determined to tear itself apart, people like you are the glue that holds it together. I'd be honored if you would join me for lunch this week. There's a restaurant I know, quiet and comfortable, where two old souls might have a conversation about life and all its complications. If you're interested, please call the number below. If not, please know that meeting you is a privilege and I wish you nothing but the best. Yours respectfully, Richard Harrington. Patricia reads the letter twice, then a third time. Marcus is watching her with curiosity. Well, what is it? An invitation, from the gentleman who spoke up for me in the lobby. The old guy with the cane, what does he want? To have lunch, to talk. Patricia folds the letter carefully. He was very kind, Marcus, very brave, speaking up like he did. Are you going to go? Patricia considers. She hasn't made new friends in years, since Raymond died, really. The energy required to build new connections has felt beyond her, and the comfort of solitude has been easier than the risk of new relationships. But there's something about this letter, about the elegant handwriting and the measured words, that calls to her. I think I might. Marcus's eyebrows rise. Really? Don't sound so surprised. I'm not dead yet. I know, but... He pauses, searching for words. You've been so closed off since Dad died. It's good to see you opening up again. Your father would want me to keep living. He was very insistent about that, actually, made me promise at the end. What did you promise? That I wouldn't crawl into the grave with him, that I'd stay in the world, keep connecting with people, keep finding reasons to get up in the morning. She looks down at the letter in her hands. I haven't been very good at keeping that promise. Maybe this is a chance to do better. Mama, Marcus's voice is thick. I'm glad you're here. I know I don't say it enough, but having you in our lives, having you come for the brunch, being there for Maya, it means everything. It means everything to me too, baby. Everything? They embrace, mother and son, in the kitchen that's too modern and too complicated, but somehow still a place where love can happen. The lunch with Richard Harrington takes place 3 days later, at a small restaurant in Midtown that Patricia has never heard of but immediately falls in love with. It's the kind of place that doesn't announce itself. No flashy sign, no trendy decor. Just good food and comfortable seating and an atmosphere of quiet sophistication. Richard is already there when she arrives, rising from his chair with old-fashioned courtesy as she approaches the table. Mrs. Williams, thank you for coming. Please call me Patricia. Only if you call me Richard. He smiles, and the wrinkles around his eyes speak of a life well lived, full of laughter and tears and everything in between. I wasn't sure you would come. It's not every day a strange old man sends a letter out of the blue. It's not every day a strange old man stands up in a hotel lobby and tells the truth when it would have been easier to stay silent. They sit, menus are brought, water is poured. The normal rituals of a restaurant meal, but underneath them, something more profound is happening. Two people who have lived long enough to know how rare genuine connection is, tentatively reaching toward each other. I have a confession to make, Richard says after they've ordered. I didn't speak up in that lobby entirely out of altruism. Oh. I had selfish reasons too. You see, I was watching you before the incident started. I noticed you with your granddaughter, the way you two were together, and I found myself thinking about my own grandmother who died when I was 10. She was extraordinary, strong and gentle, and absolutely unwilling to let the world dictate who she could be or where she belonged. She sounds wonderful. She was. And watching you with Maya, I saw echoes of her, that same combination of tenderness and steel. It made me nostalgic, I suppose. So when that woman started making trouble, I couldn't just sit there. It would have felt like betraying my grandmother's memory. Patricia feels her eyes stinging again, always with the tears these days, and blinks them back. Tell me about her, your grandmother. Richard's face softens. Her name was Marguerite. She was German, actually, came over on a boat in 1905 when she was just 19. No English, no money, nothing but determination. She worked as a seamstress, saved every penny, married a man from Ireland who worked in a factory. Together, they built a life from nothing. And she never let anyone tell her she didn't belong. That must have been hard being an immigrant back then. It was brutal. The prejudice she faced, against Germans, against immigrants, against the poor, it was relentless. But she refused to be broken by it. She used to say, they can take everything from you, but they can't take your dignity unless you hand it to them. Watching you on Saturday, I thought of her saying that. You didn't hand them anything. Your grandmother was right. Dignity is the one thing that only we can give away. They talk through lunch and long after, two people discovering unexpected common ground. Richard, it turns out, spent 40 years as a civil rights attorney. He was at Selma, At the March on Washington, in the rooms where legislation was drafted and histories were changed. He lost his wife 5 years ago to cancer, and his only son to a car accident 2 decades before that. He lives alone in a house full of memories and books, and he hadn't realized how lonely he was until he sat in that hotel lobby and watched Patricia Williams handle injustice with grace. I stopped believing for a while, he admits. After my son died, after my wife got sick, I thought, what's the point? The world keeps turning, the sun keeps rising, and all the fighting and hoping and struggling doesn't change the fundamental truth that we all end up in the same place. What brought you back? Nothing dramatic, just moments. Watching a stranger help an old man cross the street, seeing children laugh in a playground. Reading about someone who saved a life or changed a law or made art that moved people. Little reminders that even in a world full of darkness, there's light too. You just have to keep your eyes open for it. I know what you mean. After Raymond died, my husband, I went through the same thing, months of not caring about anything, not seeing the point. And then Maya was born and I held her for the first time and I thought, okay, there's still something worth being here for. Your granddaughter seems like quite the character. She's the best thing in my life. Her and Marcus and Denise, of course, but Maya especially. She's so full of possibility, like a seed that hasn't bloomed yet, but you can already see what kind of flower it's going to be. What kind of flower? Patricia smiles. Something fierce and beautiful, something that blooms even in hard soil. The afternoon stretches long, and eventually they realize they've been talking for nearly 4 hours. The restaurant has emptied and filled and emptied again around them, the sun moving across the sky outside the windows. I should let you go, Richard says reluctantly. I've monopolized your entire afternoon. It's been a long time since anyone monopolized my afternoon so pleasantly. Patricia. He hesitates, and there's something vulnerable in his expression that she hasn't seen before. I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I'd like to do this again, if you're willing. I don't have many people left to talk to, and talking to you has been, well, it's been the best conversation I've had in years. I'd like that too, Patricia says, and means it. They exchange phone numbers. Richard insists on writing his by hand, claiming he doesn't trust cell phones, and walk out together into the soft Atlanta afternoon. At the door, Richard takes her hand and bows slightly over it, the gesture antique and somehow perfect. Until next time, Patricia. Until next time, Richard. She watches him walk away, leaning on his cane but moving with surprising strength, and feels something she hasn't felt in a long time. The possibility of new friendship, of new connection, of life continuing to offer surprises even when you thought you'd seen everything. The weeks that follow are a gradual settling back into routine, but a routine that has been irrevocably changed. Patricia returns to her home in Stone Mountain, but she comes into Atlanta more often now, for lunches with Richard, for dinners with Marcus and Denise and Maya, for the simple pleasure of being around people she loves. Victoria Crane, true to her word, begins volunteering at the Children's Literacy Foundation. Patricia hears about it through Denise, who reports that Victoria is tentative at first, clearly uncomfortable but determined. She reads to children who look nothing like her, listens to their stories, begins to understand that the world is bigger and more diverse than the narrow slice she's inhabited all her life. Bradley comes too, sullen and resentful at first but gradually thawing. He makes friends with a boy named Deshaun who shares his love of comic books, and Patricia hears secondhand that they've started trading graphic novels and arguing about which superhero could beat which in a fight. Small things, maybe. But sometimes the smallest things are where change really takes root. The business contract with Horizon Industries goes through, though Theodore Crane is conspicuously absent from the signing ceremony. Marcus tells Patricia that Theodore resigned, officially for personal reasons, but everyone knows the truth. The company wanted to distance itself from the embarrassment, and Theodore, perhaps recognizing that his career was effectively over anyway, decided to exit gracefully. Patricia doesn't feel sorry for him. She spent enough of her life feeling sorry for people who don't deserve it. Richard becomes a regular fixture in her life. Lunches, phone calls, long walks through the botanical gardens when the weather is nice. He tells her stories about the civil rights era, about cases he argued and battles he fought, about the slow incremental progress that sometimes felt like no progress at all until you looked back and realized how far you'd come. He tells him stories about Raymond, about raising 2 boys on not enough money, about the small rebellions and quiet victories that made up her life. You know, Richard says one afternoon, sitting on a bench in the gardens while butterflies dance around them, I thought I was done making meaningful connections. I thought that part of my life was over. Me too, Patricia admits. After Raymond, I just stopped expecting things, stopped hoping for things. It was safer that way. Safer, but lonely. Yes, very lonely. Richard takes her hand, a simple gesture of connection. I'm glad we found each other, Patricia Williams. Whatever comes next, I'm glad for this. Whatever comes next, she echoes, and looks out at the garden, at the butterflies and the flowers and the endless cycle of growth and change. Maya's 8th birthday party is on a Saturday in July, held in the backyard of the Williams estate with enough balloons and streamers to be visible from space. Theme is magical creatures, which means fairies and unicorns and dragons, all of which Maya insists are real. Thank you very much, just very good at hiding. Patricia arrives early to help with preparations and finds herself immediately pressed into service inflating balloons and arranging decorations. Richard is there too. He's become something of an honorary grandfather figure over the past months, and the two of them work side by side, occasionally bickering in the comfortable way of old friends. You're putting the streamers too low, Patricia observes. I'm putting them at a height appropriate for 8-year-olds. They're supposed to be decoration, not obstacles. Children will get tangled. Children get tangled in everything. It's one of their primary skills. Despite herself, Patricia laughs. You're impossible. So I've been told many times by much scarier people than you. The party itself is a chaos of children and cake and noise, the kind of joyful bedlam that Patricia would have found exhausting a year ago, but now finds herself embracing. She watches Maya blow out her candles, surrounded by friends of every shade and background, and thinks about how different this is from the birthday parties of her own childhood, segregated, limited, shaped by the invisible walls that kept certain people in certain places. Change is like a river, James, the driver, once told her. You don't always see it moving, but it carves canyons eventually. Maybe this is the canyon being carved. Maybe these children growing up in a world that isn't perfect but is at least trying to be better will be the ones who finally break through the barriers that have constrained every generation before them. Grandma! Maya appears at her elbow, face smeared with chocolate frosting. Grandma, I have to tell you something. What is it, baby? Maya looks around with exaggerated secrecy, then leans close. I made a birthday wish and I'm not supposed to tell anyone because then it won't come true, but I want to tell you anyway. You know, telling might really make it not come true. I don't care. Maya's voice is firm. I wish that you would live forever and ever. That's what I wished. Patricia feels her heart swell with a love so intense it's almost painful. She kneels down, her knees are getting better, or maybe she's just stopped caring about the pain, and takes Maya's face in her hands. That's the most beautiful wish anyone has ever made for me. Do you think it'll come true? I think. Patricia pauses, searching for the right words. I think that no one lives forever, baby, not even grandmas, but love does. Love lives forever. And as long as you remember me, as long as you carry the things I've taught you in your heart, part of me will still be here, always. Maya considers this seriously. So like a ghost, but a nice ghost. Sure, like a nice ghost. A grandma ghost who watches over you and cheers you on and is very proud of everything you do. Will you still be able to do grandma hugs when you're a ghost? I don't know, baby, but I bet ghost hugs are pretty good too. Maya thinks about this, then nods decisively. Okay, when you're a ghost, I want extra hugs to make up for all the ones we miss. Deal. They hug right there in the middle of the party chaos. Grandmother and granddaughter wrapped in each other's arms while children shriek and balloons pop and the summer sun beats down on them all. Later that evening, after the party is over and the guests have gone home and Maya is sleeping the deep sleep of an exhausted 8-year-old, Patricia sits on the back porch with Marcus and Denise and Richard, drinking wine and watching fireflies dance in the twilight. Thank you, Marcus says quietly, for everything. For being here, for what you did at the hotel, for everything. You don't need to thank me, baby. You're my son. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. I know, but still. Denise and I were talking, and we want you to know that if you ever want to move closer, not into the house, we know you like your independence, but maybe somewhere nearby, we would love that. We would love having you around more. Patricia looks at her son, at her daughter-in-law, at this life they've built that is so different from the one she grew up in. She looks at Richard, who gives her a small, encouraging nod. I'll think about it, she says, but for now I'm happy where I am. Stone Mountain is home. Raymond is there in a way. The house we built together, the garden I've tended for 30 years. I'm not ready to leave that yet. Of course, whenever you're ready, or never, whatever you want. But I'll visit more. That I can promise. The evening stretches long, stories and laughter and the comfortable silence of people who don't need to fill every moment with words. Patricia looks around at the faces she loves. Her son, her daughter-in-law, her granddaughter sleeping upstairs, her new friend who has become dear to her, and thinks about how strange life is. How the worst moments can lead to the best ones. How pain can be transformed into wisdom. How even at 53 years old, it's possible to learn new things and make new connections and grow in ways you never expected. She thinks about Victoria Crane, somewhere in Atlanta, still doing her volunteer hours, still learning what it means to see people as individuals instead of categories. She thinks about Bradley, hopefully becoming a different kind of man than his father. She thinks about all the children who will learn to read this year through the Foundation's programs, all the worlds that will open up to them through stories. She thinks about Raymond, gone but never really gone, his love woven into every moment of her life. And she thinks about Maya, dreaming in her bed upstairs, birthday wishes still fresh in her heart. Maya, who will grow up in this complicated world, who will face her own versions of the challenges Patricia has faced, who will have to find her own way through. But she won't be alone. She'll have stories to guide her. She'll have examples to follow. She'll have love to sustain her. That's the legacy, Patricia thinks, not money or status or power, just love. Love passed down through generations, through every hard moment and every joyful one, through loss and renewal, through endings that become beginnings. The fireflies dance on, tiny lights in the darkness, and Patricia Williams sits in the midst of her family and allows herself to feel, for this one perfect moment, that everything is going to be all right. And now, as we reach the end of this story, we want to hear from you. What moments touched you most? What did Patricia's journey teach you about grace, about resilience, about the power of choosing love over hate? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts with our community. Every comment helps us create more stories like this one. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next chapter of our journey together. 6 months later, the call comes in the middle of the night. Patricia is dreaming about Raymond, a good dream, one where they're young again and dancing in the kitchen of their first apartment when the phone tears through the silence. Mrs. Williams. A voice she doesn't recognize, professional and careful. This is Atlanta Medical Center. Your son, Marcus Williams, was involved in an accident. He's asking for you. The world tilts. Patricia grips the phone so hard her knuckles go white. Is he alive? He's alive, ma'am. He's in surgery, but he's asking for you. The drive into Atlanta is a blur. James comes for her. Of course he does. He's been a family ally for 15 years. And they race through the pre-dawn darkness while Patricia prays to a God she's not sure she believes in anymore. Please, please, please. At the hospital, she finds Denise in the waiting room, mascara streaked with tears, looking more afraid than Patricia has ever seen her. What happened? A drunk driver. Marcus was coming home from a late meeting. The other car ran a red light, hit him on the driver's side. They had to cut him out of the wreckage. Denise's voice breaks. They don't know if... They can't tell me. Patricia takes her daughter-in-law in her arms, and they hold each other while the minutes stretch into hours. Richard arrives at some point, having been called by Patricia in a moment she doesn't quite remember. Maya is still home with Rosa, deliberately kept away from this nightmare for as long as possible. The surgeon comes out at 7 in the morning, still in scrubs, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. Mrs. Williams, Patricia and Denise both step forward. Your husband, your son. The surgeon looks between them. He's out of surgery, he's going to live. The relief is so intense Patricia actually staggers. Richard catches her arm, steadies her. There's more, the surgeon continues. The injuries were severe, his left leg. We had to amputate below the knee. And there was damage to his spine. We won't know the full extent until he wakes up, but there's a possibility of partial paralysis. The words land like blows, one after another. Patricia feels them without fully processing them, her mind stuck on the only fact that matters: he's alive. Can we see him? Soon, he's in recovery now. But he was asking for you, Mrs. Williams. She looks directly at Patricia before he went under. He said to tell you that he's not giving up. That you taught him never to give up. The tears come then, unstoppable, a flood of relief and grief and love all mixed together. Patricia cries in the waiting room of Atlanta Medical Center while her son lies somewhere beyond, fighting the battle of his life. The recovery is long and hard. Marcus spends weeks in the hospital, then months in rehabilitation. The paralysis, mercifully, is not as severe as feared. He has feeling in both legs, though the left one ends now at the knee, replaced by a prosthetic that he approaches with the same determination he brings to everything. This is just a new challenge, he tells Patricia during one of her many visits. I've faced challenges before. I'll face this one too. I know you will, baby, but you don't have to face it alone. I know that too. That's the lesson you taught me, remember. We're never really alone. The company adapts. Marcus works from home for a while, then from the office, then everywhere, the prosthetic becoming as natural as breathing, his reduced mobility accommodated by a world that, for once, seems willing to make space for him. Victoria Crane sends flowers to the hospital, along with a note that Patricia finds surprisingly touching. Your mother-in-law changed my life, it reads. I'm praying for your full recovery, and if there's anything I can do, anything at all, please let me know. Small miracles, tiny transformations, the ripples of grace spreading outward. Maya, confronted with her father's injury, responds with a resilience that takes everyone's breath away. She helps with his physical therapy exercises, reads to him when he's tired, makes him laugh when he's frustrated. At 8 years old, she seems to understand something that takes most people a lifetime to learn. That love is not about what we can do for each other, but about being present for each other through everything. "Daddy," she says one evening, sitting on his hospital bed, "remember when Grandma was at the hotel and that lady was mean?" Marcus looks at his daughter, curious. "Yes, I remember. Grandma didn't get angry. She was brave and kind, and she made the lady sorry. And now you got hurt real bad, but you're not angry either. You're being brave. Is that what Grandma taught you?" "That's exactly what Grandma taught me." "Good," Maya nods decisively. "Then I'm going to learn it too. So when bad things happen to me, I can be brave like you and Grandma." Marcus pulls his daughter close, and Patricia, watching from the doorway, feels that familiar swell of love that never seems to diminish no matter how many times she experiences it. The anniversary of the hotel incident comes around again, 1 full year since a blonde woman in a pink Chanel suit tried to have Patricia removed from a fountain. A lot has changed in that year. Marcus is walking again, though with a prosthetic and a slight limp. Denise has expanded the Foundation's programs, inspired by everything that happened, determined to reach more children with the transformative power of literacy. Richard has become a permanent part of their extended family, present at holidays and birthdays and Sunday dinners, the grandfather figure that Maya has adopted with characteristic enthusiasm. And Victoria Crane, Victoria, whose prejudice set everything in motion, has completed her volunteer hours and then some. She's still there, still reading to children, still learning and growing and trying. She and Patricia have had several more conversations, tentative but genuine, two women from very different worlds finding their way towards something that might eventually be called friendship. On the anniversary itself, Patricia receives a letter. It's from Theodore Crane, a name she hasn't thought about in months, the husband who resigned in disgrace, the man whose career ended because of his wife's actions, and she suspects his own. "Dear Mrs. Williams, you don't know me, except perhaps as a villain in your story, the husband of the woman who treated you so badly, the man who lost his job because of what she did. I've wanted to write to you for months, but I couldn't find the words. I'm writing now because I've had a year to think about what happened, and I've come to some conclusions I want to share with you. First, I was not a good man. My wife's behavior in that hotel lobby was not an aberration. It was a reflection of attitudes she learned from me, from our marriage, from the world we created together. Her prejudice was my prejudice, worn like a coat, justified by all the excuses I'd accumulated over the years. Second, losing my job was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to confront who I had become, and I didn't like what I saw. I've spent the past year in therapy trying to understand how I got here, trying to become someone better. It's slow work, and I don't know if I'll ever fully succeed, but I'm trying. Third, and most important, I want to thank you, not for what happened to my career, I deserved that, but for what you did for my wife. For giving her the chance to change instead of simply punishing her. Victoria is a different person now than she was a year ago. Our marriage is different. Our family is different. And it's because of you, because you chose grace when you had every right to choose revenge. I don't expect a response. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that your kindness rippled further than you probably realize. It reached into a family you never met, changed people you had every reason to hate, and created possibilities that wouldn't have existed otherwise. Thank you. Theodore Crane. Patricia reads the letter 3 times, sitting in her garden in Stone Mountain, surrounded by the roses that Raymond planted and that she's tended ever since. She thinks about ripples, about how one act can spread outward, touching lives you never know, changing futures you never see. About how grace, offered without expectation, can transform not just the recipient but everyone connected to them. She thinks about Raymond and what he would say if he were here. She can almost hear his voice. "That's my Patty, changing the world one heart at a time." She folds the letter carefully and places it in the box where she keeps important things. Their wedding photo, Marcus's first report card, Maya's baby footprints. Small monuments to the big moments, the markers of a life well lived. Then she goes inside to call her son, her daughter-in-law, her new friend Richard, her beloved granddaughter. Because life continues, and there are new days to be lived, and new challenges to be faced, and always, always more love to be given. The final scene takes place on a summer evening, exactly 18 months after the incident at the Ashford Grand Hotel. The Williams family is gathered on the back porch, Marcus in his chair with his prosthetic legs stretched out before him, Denise curled beside him, Maya playing some complicated game of make-believe with Richard's cane, Richard himself telling stories about the old days while Patricia listens and laughs. The fireflies are out again, dancing their eternal dance, tiny lights in the gathering dark. "I have an announcement," Maya says suddenly, standing up and adopting her most serious expression. What is it, baby? I've decided what I want to be when I grow up. A dragon trainer? Marcus asks, smiling. No, well, maybe also that, but mainly I want to be like Grandma. Patricia feels her heart catch. Like me? Yes, I want to be the kind of person who makes things better, who sees when people are mean and helps them learn to be kind, who loves her family so much that she comes when they need her and teaches them to be brave and never gives up even when bad things happen. Maya pauses, considering. Also, I want to have gray hair like yours because it's really pretty. Baby girl. Patricia's voice is thick with emotion. That's the most wonderful thing anyone has ever said to me. It's just true, Grandma. You're the best person I know. Patricia opens her arms, and Maya runs into them, and they hold each other while the fireflies dance and the night settles soft around them. This is it, Patricia thinks. This is what it all leads to. Not the battles fought or the enemies conquered, not the wealth accumulated or the achievements recorded. Just this, a child who has learned to love and who will carry that love forward into a future we cannot see. Change is like a river. It carves canyons eventually. And sometimes, it starts with a grandmother and a granddaughter throwing pennies in a fountain, making wishes that just might come true. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Patricia's story. If her strength, her grace, and her love touched your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment below and tell us, what lesson from Patricia's life will you carry with you? How has Grace changed your own story? We are so grateful for this community, for everyone who watches, who comments, who shares. Together, we're building something special, a space where stories of hope and justice and love can flourish. Until next time, remember, dignity is something only you can give away. Hold yours close, offer grace to those who need it, and never stop believing that change is possible. From all of us to all of you, thank you and see you soon.